The tremors beneath my feet were becoming more violent. My back was beginning to burn from the intense heat behind me. It was as if I was running away from lava rushing down the mountainside. Sweat was beating up on my body and making me gasp for air. "Keep running, we are almost there," Jamie yelled, glancing at Gia and me. "We should shift," Gia panted out. We don't have even a second to spare." Jamie glanced behind us, and I could see the white around his eyes. "Gods, run faster, you two." I noticed how tense his face looked. I could see his lips pursed together from his side profile. I understood this look. He planned to confront what was coming after us. I was about to say something when Gia's voice growled angrily. "Damn it, Jamie. If you plan to fight, I am fighting with you." "Gia," Jamie huffed out, "quit yapping and run. There shouldn't be any air in your lungs to talk. If there is, you aren't running fast enough," Stilts said, popping up on top of my head. "Stilts!" I exclaimed, relieved to know the little man was okay. "Run. Just run." Stilts poked his cane into my head slightly as I felt his body turn to look behind us. "I'm only going to get one shot at this. Let's hope you guys are fast enough to get out of the way." I wanted to ask him what he was talking about, but he was right. I couldn't afford to use up my precious oxygen. The ground under my feet was beginning to burn now, as whatever it was beginning to close in on us. I could smell a strong sulfur smell as it bellowed loudly. Its breath singed my back. I noticed Gia visibly wince as her shirt began to burn slightly. Small holes were forming, and blisters were popping up under her shirt. This creature was cooking us with its heat. Faster. I had to run faster. I felt like I couldn't feel my legs anymore. Was it from exhaustion? The scorching heat? I think I was moving from pure adrenaline. The air was hot and thick. It offered little oxygen, which I desperately needed. Yet, in the distance, I could see a small speck of light that grew as we approached it. Finally, the way out. But then what? I couldn't think of that. I just had to run. Just a bit farther. A guttural roar behind us made the ground shake. It felt like the blood on my back was boiling as the pain raced through my veins. I wonder if I could command whatever this was to stop? I've done it before. I just didn't have the confidence in myself to do it on demand. I wouldn't have a choice soon. I would have to try. "Whatever you do, none of you stop. Just keep running." Stilts yelled out as he began to chant under his breath. I didn't understand the words. They were words of an ancient language. As he spoke, I could see a light beginning to glow around me. "Push yourself, Gia," Jamie growled, and I could see she didn't have much left. Blood was dripping down her back, and I'm certain mine looked the same. Some of her skin was charred, and her shirt was being held by thin fabric strings. Rubble started falling from the ceiling above us. It started to get dusty. The opening was just in front of us, the creature right behind. Then rocks were falling. Hot breath hissed behind me. Dust hit us all. "Jump! Jump!" Stilts yelled. I jumped forward, rolling as I hit the ground. The crashing sounds of rocks and an angry screech filled the air. Gray powder covered my view as I lied on the cool grass. Grass? I had made it out of the cave. The air began to clear, and I could see the entrance to the mine was covered in stone. "Can it get out?" Jamie asked hastily as he knelt at Gia's side. "Yes, but that should hold him for a while," Stilts said, making his way to me. I watched as his eyes softened as he sucked air in through his teeth. "Why aren't they healing? What was that?" I heard Jamie's voice as I closed my eyes. The pain was excruciating and radiating over my back. That was a Salador, a demon lizard, and it was hunting. I opened my eyes to look at Stilts. It was searching the mines for you. I watched him purse his lips together. "If demons are after her, should we get her to Elysium?" Jamie asked as I watched Stilts shake his head. "Without her, the chance pack is lost. It seems like they are getting desperate, though. Too bad we don't have an extra guardian around." Stilts let out an airy laugh as I tried to make sense of what he was saying. A guardian? I have heard rumors about guardians. They were protectors of the royal fairies. They were said to be beasts with an unheard of power. Right now, all guardians are at their posts. Especially with the recent loss in the kingdom, there is none to spare. I listened as Jamie sighed. So, what about these wounds?" "It's a Salador, boy. They are lucky to be alive. These are burns from hellfire itself. They won't be healing right away. I've heard the burns are incredibly painful." "Why aren't we burned?" Jamie asked. I can move in and out, avoiding the heat. The girls blocked it from hitting you. You were faster than them and they ran slightly behind you. This is why it pays to be quicker." Stilts tried to crack a joke, but I couldn't find it funny. I was hurting and I needed to push myself back on my feet. I needed to find Scion. Painfully, I lifted to my knees. A strangled cry left my throat as I panted through the pain. "Stay still," Stilts yelled. "We can't stay here." I looked at him. "If that thing gets out, can I stop it?" I watched as he looked down at the ground. "You can't stop a Salador. Maybe, and I mean maybe, if you were an expert in your powers. As you are?" "No." I watched as he nodded his head and he looked over at Gia and Jamie. "You are right, we can't stay here. However, you ladies are in no condition to move. I can carry them both. I can put one over each shoulder, or I can shift and carry them both." "I need to find Scion," I protested. "I wasn't going anywhere without him. Let's just concentrate on getting away from here. Then we will worry about finding the others." I could see the worried look on Stilt's face. If we encountered any opposition right now, we would be sitting ducks. Jamie lifted Gia and walked next to me. "Are you okay, Gia?" I asked, and she gave me a weak smile. "What this? I don't even feel it. Talk about making a mountain out of a molehill," she said, wincing as Jamie sat her next to me. "Scion?" I tried to link to him but didn't get a response. He was either still fighting, or the fight led him farther away. "I'm going to shift. Can you two climb on without help?" Jamie asked, looking between us with concern. "We aren't lame," Gia spat out, clicking her tongue. I had to hand it to her. I know she was in agony right now, but she held her aces close to her chest. It was refreshing meeting her. There was a fierceness in her eyes that was unmistakable. Jamie's eyes were now on me. He was assessing my wounds and determining if I would be a light. "You heard her. There is nothing wrong with our legs. They were maybe a bit tender, but our backs received the brunt of it. Our legs were moving, and I am guessing that is why they didn't get burned up. You two are some tough ladies. I'm sorry." I glanced up at Jamie, confused, as his eyes began to water. "This shouldn't have happened. I should have been behind you two. Jamie, you were leading us out. Hard to do that from behind us. This isn't your fault. Don't you dare put the blame on yourself, or I'll punch you." "Yeah, what she said," I smiled, nodding over at Gia. "Besides, it is probably better it happened to us. Men are such babies with pain." I grinned as Gia laughed quietly. "Gosh, don't make me laugh, it hurts." I watched as Gia looked at Jamie. "We are okay, I'm okay, so don't." Just then, there was a loud thud against the rocks that were blocking the mine entrance. "Let's get out of here," Jamie said with a sigh before he shifted into an enormous gray wolf. I have heard that the officers under the Alpha King were larger. Well, larger wouldn't be how I would describe it. As a Gamma wolf, he shouldn't be anywhere near the size of an Alpha. Well, he wasn't. He was even larger. His large gray bows spread in front of him as he bowed down lower. He was still helping us get access to his back. However, now that I see his size, it would have been a heck of a jump to climb on. "I still don't see why we can't walk," Gia said, clicking her tongue as she slid her leg over the gray wolf. "I think you already know why you can't walk. The strain will make it harder to heal. You can already feel the effects of hellfire in your body. Your legs may even give out on you," Stilts said effortlessly, hopping on the back of the wolf. I knew my legs felt weird. There was a strange numb, tingling sensation that was like stabbing needles over my calf. My legs even felt shaky as I swung it over the wolf. I sifted my fingers in his thick gray fur as he rose to a stand. "I have to say, nice work there, Gandalf," Gia said, turning her head so a sly smile was seen on her face. That was almost as cool as the "you shall not pass" moment. I'm much cooler than that make-believe wizard. Stilts snorted out insulted as he clicked his heels into the side of Jamie. "Let's move it, pup." Jamie gurgled slightly but slowly walked away, his ears tilted backwards so he could listen to us. He was being very attentive as he took each careful step. It was obvious he was still worried and afraid to hurt us. Though, looking carefully at Gia's back now, it looked horrible. If my back looked anything like this, it was no wonder it hurt so badly. I watched how Jamie's ears suddenly perked up and moved forward. I also could faintly hear the sounds of fighting in the distance. I wondered if it was my traveling companions. I hoped they were all right. Gia tried to initiate some small talk while we rode on the gray wolf. It was nice to get some distance away from the mine, and I think we were all feeling a bit more relieved being farther away from that creature. We had maybe traveled a few miles when the sound of a twig snapping made the wolf freeze below us. I felt his claws dig into the earth as he shifted his shoulder blades. A low warning growl reverberated from Jamie's throat as a musty scent rose in the air. "Shh," Gia muttered. "Voidless." I stared into the woods as pale, clay-like creatures emerged. They were just like the ones I had seen before. We didn't have a choice. We would have to fight. "Sheena, I'm here." "You ready to stretch your legs?" "It's going to hurt. I can't heal these wounds on our back. It's taking a long time." It hurts now anyways," I replied with a smirk on my face. I was not going to climb on a tree and watch a battle unfold. If there was going to be a fight, I was going to join in. I pushed myself off Jamie, and when I landed, it was with my 4 silver paws. "Right, let's do this," Gia said as Jamie growled. "You can't fight them all, Jamie." Gia scoffed as she pushed herself off him. Her wolf landed and stood proudly, defiantly facing the Voidless. I shifted my paws into the dirt as I eyed the approaching danger. We wouldn't focus on the pain. We would focus on the fight. "Careful, they aren't alone out here," Stilt said from up in a tree branch. He was staring into the distance as he lifted his cane in front of him. Of course there would be others. I mean, this was my life after all. It seemed like it was the new normal to face perilous dangers. Okay then, bring it on. Note, next update is the 29th. Who is still with me? Can you leave me a comment if you are here? It's been a rough couple of days. I watched as seekers began to step into view. I bared my teeth at them while laying my ears flat against my head. I tried to command them, but I felt rushed as they began to close in. This was why I needed to practice this skill. I needed to be comfortable no matter the pressure I was under. Jamie's gray wolf took a forward stance slightly in front of Gia and me. We were being closed in on an arch formation. Seekers and Voidless all seemed to be focused on me. They all stopped as the anticipation of the attack began to build. I felt my heart pounding. My eyes darted over all of them, waiting for the next move. The wind swirled around us, tossing leaves in the air to dance. Then they attacked. They charged forward, and Jamie collided with them first. The Voidless were over him as the Seekers charged towards Gia and me. Teeth gnashed and fur flew. Loud growls filled the air. I could smell the blood in the air as Seekers made contact with me. When I felt a claw swipe over my back, the loud yelp escaped naturally. The pain didn't hinder me, though. It fueled me. I felt my anger rise as I dove into the wolves. I made contact and sank my fangs into a shoulder. The blood poured out of him, reaching up and burning my nose. When one would back off, another would fill its gap. Gia was fighting against 2 Seekers. I could hear her growls and whimpers. I understood how much pain it was to fight with our current wounds. Yet, just like me, she pressed on relentlessly. The thundering sound of more wolves joined in the fight, and I was covered. I could feel a darkness bursting inside of me, begging to be released. Blue sparks erupted over the wolves and the Voidless. The Seekers yelped and writhed on the ground for a few moments before recovering. I glanced over at Jamie, who seemed to be channeling the lightning. Okay, so he wasn't a normal wolf. He was casting lightning, and in wolf form. No wonder he was the future Gamma of the Diamond Pack. The cascading sparks soon subsided, and Jamie moved closer to Gia and me. His wolf looked back at us, as if he was pleading for us to run. I straightened up. The blood dripped from the dozen wounds I have received, but I wasn't done. Gia regrouped herself as well. I had more in me. I could feel it. I know I had more to offer, but I couldn't figure out how to tap into it. I glanced up where I had last seen Stilts, only he wasn't there. I doubt he just left us. Maybe he went for help? I looked ahead, my eyes wandering over our enemy. We were more than outnumbered. This looked like a suicide stand. The Voidless were vicious monsters with claws and fangs. They were like a deadlier and faster zombie. The Voidless alone would have been a hard enough fight, but there were also Seekers. I had to try again. I had to see if I could hold them off. I just needed some time. Jamie, I noticed his shocked eyes as he whipped his head to look at me. I am sure having my mental link push into his mind was something he wasn't expecting. Still, he didn't overly react. Can you use that lightning stuff again? I can, but the spell isn't as powerful hitting all targets. That's okay. I just need to delay them. You have a plan? Maybe, I don't know. I'm still getting used to my powers. If you have something, then try it. We need help here. I nodded my head. This wasn't the time to hold back. I would give it everything I could. I could see the blue light glowing from around Jamie, and I focused on the power inside of me. It was as if the still waters inside of me were slowly creating waves. It crashed against me, but then retreated. I felt rushed. I needed something now. The moment I felt the energy ripple through me, I latched onto it. The lightning that sparked through the wolves and voidless started to fade. This was it. Channeling everything into the energy, I mentally ordered them. Freeze! For a moment it worked. None of them moved at first, but then I felt the burning in my back. It was like battery acid was being poured over my spine, and it momentarily hindered my concentration. Sheena heaved and then coughed. Blood splattered from Sheena's mouth and onto the ground. Slowly, the enemy began to animate again. Let it go, Clover. Help is on the way. I heard Stiltz's voice as my paws trembled. No, I wasn't letting go. I didn't want to be saved. I wanted to save myself. I wasn't a damsel in distress. You aren't ready. You have a dangerous wound. Don't be stupid. Stiltz appeared in front of me, waving his cane in front of me. The next second, he struck me with it between my eyes. It sent tingles through my body, and the enemy was on the move. A ferocious, ear-piercing roar was heard. Then a white blur crashed into the mob. I had to blink several times to adjust to the sight. This was the first time I had ever seen a cat shifter. They tended to keep to themselves like werebears did. An enormous white tiger was slashing through the enemy. It was almost mesmerizing watching the tiger fight. The lethal agility of a tiger was captivating. I didn't know who this person was, but was thankful for the help. A moment later, Jamie and Gia joined in the fight. I wasn't about to be outdone. Even with the tiger, we were outnumbered. I jumped at a wolf about to attack Gia. Standing on my back paws, we battled against each other, snarling and swiping our paws. A black streak dove into the seeker I was fighting against. Odell gutted him instantly and then lifted her head to look at me. There wasn't time for a greeting. The voidless charged into us as a familiar guttural roar ripped into the air. I would recognize Scion no matter what form he was in. I knew him by sight, scent, and his sounds. He hadn't arrived yet, but he was coming. This was his battle roar, letting us know he was on his way. Clover! I could hear Scion's desperate voice in my head. Scion, sharp teeth sank into my back and then was kicked off by hooves. Clover! Dimitri raised his sword in front of me protectively. Joey was next to me, fighting a voidless. The loud snarls filled the air as bodies began to pile on the ground. A voidless and a wolf were fighting against Gia. Jamie was surrounded and couldn't get to her. I reacted, jumping at the voidless. My teeth sank into the creature's neck. I didn't stop applying pressure until I heard the snap, and the body went lifeless. I didn't have a moment to catch my breath, and there was another, and another, and another. All the while my blood was dripping onto the ground. Voidless hands were all over me as I struggled to break free. I was being lifted and moved away. The long talon fingers sank into me, the arms squeezing me as they began to carry me off, as if I would just melt in their arms and allow them to do this. I fought and snapped at the voidless. As I resisted, I felt my body being sliced and cut from their dagger fingertips, but I didn't care. I was in so much pain that I felt numb to it. I would rather be dead than captive. I managed to kick my back end free but was still hanging there, twisting to get loose. I could hear Odell's roar, Dimitri's yell, and then I was knocked loose. My feet landed on the ground and a red wolf stood in front of me protectively. A smoky blur destroyed the voidless almost instantly and then turned his raging fury on the seekers. I watched as Scion mercilessly shredded the wolves and the voidless. His golden eyes flickered at me for a moment before ruthlessly eviscerating a voidless. Logan and Connor were attacking the voidless around Gia. If her pain was like mine, she was barely managing. Sheena was healing the wounds from the voidless, but the nauseating pain on my back was still there. I slowly moved over towards Gia. Kai was attached to my side. Now that the others were here, the fight wasn't ours anymore. Sion and the White Tiger were eradicating the enemy. This battle was over. Jamie came back towards us, looking over at Gia. I decided it would be best to shift seeing the deadly glares from Kai, Logan, and Connor. It felt like my skin was being pulled off my back as I shifted into a human. A whimper escaped my throat as I rested on my knees. Dear gods? I heard and glanced back to see Kai had shifted as well as Logan and Connor. Their eyes were glued to my back. Clover. Yeah, that was a fun time. I smiled through my pain and looked over at Gia. Brace yourself, it's gonna hurt like hell. Jamie quickly shifted and looked at Gia with concerned eyes. I'm right here, Gia. A cry came from Gia's lips as she shifted back. She was panting and clenched her teeth together as she bore the pain. She handled it like a champ, though. This woman only continued to impress me more and more. Jamie gently eased her into his side for support. His face was taut and his lips were pursed. Gia, don't say some stupid shit like it should have been me, or I swear I will deck you. Gia growled out. Your girlfriend is sweet. Connor chuckled and Gia snorted. Is that your way of asking if I am available? She cocked her head to look at him. We are cousins, Jamie said, shaking his head. It is my job to... Jamie, don't say it. It isn't your job to protect me. Don't piss me off. Gia growled and Jamie chuckled lightly. As an officer, it is my job. Jamie corrected her. Well, she is simply precious. Connor grinned, making his way to my side. He went to pull his shirt off and I shook my head. Don't. I can't bear anything covering my back right now. I don't care how indecent I look. Right. If men can walk around with no shirts on, we should be able to too. Gia snorted out as Jamie shook his head. They are just boobs. I wouldn't mind that, Connor shrugged. You won't see me protesting that. A prime example of why you can't, Logan snickered out. There are too many out there that will get a cheap thrill from it, not to mention possessive mates that will be ready to kill. Stand aside. I heard Sion's voice as his knees landed on the ground beside me. I smiled as I looked at him. Sion? What happened? I felt his trembling fingers on my shoulder as his eyes scanned over my back. Who did this to you? His eyes glowed golden as his fangs began to protrude. It was a Salador, a demon creature that was after Clover. She will mend. It will just take time. Stilts said from up in the tree. Stilts, thanks for getting us, Odell said as she stood staring at Jamie and Gia. Who are they? The Diamond Pack wolves that were watching the Sulfur Pack. Sion said, not even sparing them a glance. They have the exact same scent. You have been spying on my pack, Joey growled, coming over to their side. Easy, Joey. They are friends of mine. They helped me, I said and watched as he nodded his head. If they helped my queen, then they are friends of mine too, Sion said, brushing my hair from my eyes. Does it hurt? I'm okay. How bad is it? Sion asked, his eyes flickering between colors. Imagine having your skin peeled off your back and then dumping acid over the wound. It is worse than that. Gia grunted out as she tried to straighten up. A loud growl made all of us turn our heads. Dimitri was facing off against the white tiger. The tiger was in an aggressive stance, hissing and baring its teeth. Dimitri held one of his hands up as the tiger swatted at him, making him dance backwards. Is the tiger a friend or foe? Kai asked as the tiger began to pace side to side while glaring at Dimitri. Well, Stilts began as the tiger let out another loud roar. The white tiger pounced forward, snarling as it landed on Dimitri, taking him to the ground. Note, next update will be by the 2nd, hopefully earlier. Much love. My body tensed and started to react as the tiger bared its fangs near Dimitri's throat. Easy, Sion said, holding my shoulder. Look at Dimitri. I could see Dimitri didn't look upset. He wasn't even struggling. Actually, a strange smirk was playing on his lips. Guess someone is in trouble. Odell snickered as she leaned against a tree casually. All right, Nadine, you've made your point. This means you missed me, right? Dimitri said, lifting his hand up to the tiger. She swatted at him and backed away. She shifted into a beautiful dark-haired woman with beautiful hazelnut skin. Shut up, ass! The woman shook her head and flung her hand in my direction. You aren't doing your job. She was in danger. You said she would be safe under your watch. You said, a lot has happened. That is why we are here. We are going to the Nova Pack. Whatever, don't talk to me. The woman hissed as Dimitri got back up and inched closer to her. Don't be like that. I listened as Dimitri cooed to the woman, gingerly resting his hand on her arm. She jerked away from him and turned her ferocious glare upon him. We will talk later? She snapped and then marched in our direction. I watched her lips part in shock as she looked at me. "Oh my, what in the world?" "A salador," Stilt said, and I watched her lips tighten. It never touched them, just seared them with its heat from being too close. "That must hurt, huh?" She frowned, squatting lower near me. Sion growled as his eyes flickered. "Don't be a ridiculous male. I'm obviously not here to hurt her. She is my Luna." I had a lot I wanted to talk to her about. She was a member of the Nova Pack. My mind was racing with a million questions that didn't surface. Instead, I watched her quietly as she shook her head and let out a heavy sigh. "What the hell was a Salador doing here? We need to get her to a healer. The other lady, too." "We have one in our pack." "A healer?" Joey asked, arching one of his brows. "The Nova Pack isn't like most packs," Nadine said smugly as she rose to her feet. I watched as Dimitri tried to reach out to her again, and she turned her head to look at him sharply. "Don't." "Lovers' quarrels are the best," Odell snickered. "Ex-lovers," Nadine growled. "Mean," Dimitri said with a small pout. "Will you stop? This is about Clover and the other miss. Focus." Nadine looked at me. "You two need to be carried." "I have to return to the Diamond Pack," Jamie said, looking at Gia. "They will be expecting us." "About that, why were you at the Sulfur Pack?" I asked. I knew Joey was dying to know this too. "After the meeting, there was the fire," Jamie said, and I nodded my head. "The Diamond Pack has a lot of experience with magical creatures around the world. Our beta Sam was certain it was caused by a demon. After hearing everything from Sam, the princess ordered that the pack be investigated in secret." "And?" Joey asked, raising his brow. "And the princess will hear my report directly," Jamie smirked at him. "Well, go back to the Diamond Pack. We will take the woman with us. She is in no condition to travel that far," Nadine said, looking at Gia. "I am not leaving Gia." "Of course you can. Gia, is it? You aren't afraid to come with us, right?" Nadine asked as Gia let out an airy laugh. "What is this fear word you speak of?" Gia forced a smile through her pain as she glanced up at Jamie. I could see the reluctance in his eyes as he slowly shook his head. "Jamie, our parents will be worried. You can get there faster without me. Besides, I am in no position to travel. This hurts like hell." I watched as Jamie slowly nodded his head. "All right, Gia, I'll come right back for you. Please, take care of her." He turned and looked my way. I could see he didn't know who to trust. "Don't worry, we will take care of her," Sion answered, meeting with Jamie's eyes. "Do you need me to give you directions?" Nadine started, but Jamie shook his head. "That isn't necessary. No matter how secretive you are, the Diamond Pack is aware of the Nova Pack." Jamie grinned and placed his hand on Gia's head. "Stay out of trouble." "What? No fun?" Gia teased. "What are you waiting for? You want me to cry and say don't leave me alone?" Her lips curled up as Jamie laughed. "All right." Jamie straightened up and then shifted. He sprinted away without looking back. I think he was the one who had the harder time leaving. "So which unmated male is going to carry me? I need someone it is okay to lust after," Gia said, making me choke on air. "I'll be your huckleberry." A broad grin was spread over Connor's face as he gently lifted Gia up. Her face winced in pain, but she didn't make a sound. "I guess you are tasty enough," Gia said with a crooked smile. She was doing her best to ignore the pain. It seemed we had a lot in common, and I really liked her. "Too bad you are injured," Connor said, winking down at her. "Oh, and why is that?" I heard Gia ask as Sion delicately picked me up. Even as gentle as he was being, it still hurt like hell. "You seem like someone who likes to have a good time, and I could use a good sneeze." I began coughing as I looked over at Connor, mortified. To my surprise, Gia seemed to like it. She laughed, wincing slightly from the pain. Connor chuckled. "I'll keep that in mind when I find a real woman." "Yeah, well, if you don't view me as a woman, you should probably quit staring at my tits." Oh my gosh, Gia was like this crazy mixture of a woman, confident, full of sass, and not afraid to say just about anything. I was embarrassed for her, but at the same time, I really liked her confidence. She reminded me of Odell, just more sex. You wail. "So, would a woman like yourself like it if a man plays motorboat between your two pillows?" Gia began to giggle, and her voice cut out with a stiff sound. "Don't make me laugh," she said with a tense smile. I looked at Connor and could see his eyes soften. He held her more into his chest and looked down at her. "Lean your head on me and try to rest," he said in a low tenor tone. His voice was tender and calming. "So you are a lichen, just like our prince and princess?" Jia asked, looking up at Connor, and I felt Sion's arms tense slightly. "We are due a conversation with your prince and princess. Maybe after everything calms down again." Sion answered as he slowly followed Nadine. Sion was trying to walk as smooth as possible. It didn't seem to matter, though. The rippling pain was tearing through me. I was trying to keep a brave face, though. I didn't want him to worry. I looked up into his eyes that were already looking at me. His eyes were flickering with different colors, showing his emotions were all over the place. He was trying to act calm, but inside there was a storm brewing. I placed my hand on his chest and decided to step out of character. I would do something off the wall to steady his emotions. "What's bothering you, Sion? Are you wanting your own sneeze?" He stopped walking and looked down at me. He blinked a few times and the warm hazel color returned. His lips curled up and he began to laugh. "Once you are well, my queen." Sion leaned his head down and kissed my forehead. "Thank you." He smiled down at me, not needing to say anything else. I could feel the curious stares on us, but Sion began to walk again like nothing happened, only keeping a faint smile on his lips. "So, Dimitri, do you want to talk to us about?" Logan asked, making a cat claw with his hand and slashing it in the air. "Meow! Sk! Yeah, I can hear you." Nadine huffed from the front. "There isn't anything to tell. He is my ex." "You don't mean that, Deanie," Dimitri said with a hurt tone. "She sounds like she means it to me." Odell chirped, clearly enjoying the drama. She turned and looked at me with a wide grin. "These two are always like this. It is better than a soap opera." "So glad we can be your entertainment." Dimitri scoffed while I watched him trot up beside Nadine. "Don't be mad," I heard Dimitri say while brushing his shoulder against hers. "I've been keeping her safe." "How did that happen to her back then?" Nadine growled, elbowing him away. "She fell into a hole, a mine air shaft. I got back to her as fast as I could." "Not good enough, Dimitri. You should have wedged your ass in that hole after her. That's my Luna you are slacking on protecting, and you are being a pitiful beta to her." I wondered if I should say something on his benefit. It looked like this wasn't a real fight, though. Maybe it was how they worked their tension for later? I could see Dimitri move beside her again, and this time she didn't push him away. He whispered something to her so quietly that the supernatural ears couldn't hear. I was curious how Sion was after I fell into the air shaft. Last time I vanished from his side, he turned into a slasher. What happened after I fell in the hole? I asked quietly, looking up at Sion. "Well, Loverboy was ready to go dark side and kill everyone again. Luckily for us, the Seekers showed up and they received his wrath." Logan chuckled. "We ended up getting divided up as the Seekers split up, which is why we were a little bit later than everyone else." "You should have seen him," Odell snorted. "He tried to fit down the hole at first. I mean, I couldn't even fit down there. How did Muscles think he was going to fit?" "At least he tried," I heard Nadine scoff, glaring at Dimitri. "In the future, you should just handcuff her to you. It can be a multi-purpose tool. It will keep you two from getting separated, and later it can be used for your stimulating pleasures." Connor said, and I watched as Sion tilted his head while looking at me. "It's not a bad idea," Sion murmured quietly. His eyes were concentrating on my face. There was a softness there that was just for me. I leaned my head against Sion, closing my eyes and breathing in his scent. It might seem like something small, but it helped soothe me. I was in so much pain that I couldn't even be excited to see the Nova pack. My back felt like millions of wasps were stinging me as I was lashed with a hot iron rod. I knew I had to keep it hidden, though. I didn't want Sion to be more concerned than he already was. I felt his nose brush in my hair. His lips feathered the top of my head. "I'm so sorry I wasn't there to protect you." Sion's voice entered my mind, and I opened my eyes to look at him. I knew he was beating himself over this. He had a wounded look in his eyes, as if he had caused me pain. "If Connor had fallen in the mine and ended up injured, would you be apologizing to him? Or would you be making fun of him for falling into a hole? That is different." "No, it isn't. We aren't going to do this to each other, Sion. We are not going to live our lives blaming ourselves when the other gets hurt. You died, Sion. You died because you left your pack for me. That is way worse than the wound on my back. Do you want me to? You were right beside me. I should have held on to you. I should have. You should be treating me like you would the others. If Logan fell, if Kai fell, you should be treating me like that. You wouldn't be blaming yourself, especially if they were just wounded. I'm hurt, not dead. In fact, I can walk. I tried to move out of his arms, but his fingers locked around me. He growled slightly, and I snapped my defiant gaze up at him. I brought you to my pack to give you a better life. I wanted you to see what it was like to be part of a pack, to be my family. Instead, you had to run away from my pack. You have been in constant danger. I looked into his hazel eyes that were focused on me. I have found my family with you. I have you. I've bonded with your officers. I found my own officers. I can't think of a more epic bonding experience. Once we have the chance pack back, everything will be perfect. Everything has happened the way it was supposed to. Even your death, it has made you stronger. It has made us stronger. Scion, we aren't normal humans. We don't live in a suburban neighborhood full of regular people. You don't have a 9-to-5 job. That isn't our life. We are fighters. We have both killed before. I'm going to fight. I'm going to get hurt sometimes. You can't blame yourself when it happens, but you can be there to take care of me. I'm sorry, Clover. I don't want to be that guy. I don't mean to. Since I have changed, I feel even more protective and possessive over you. I think it is because I need you on a level that probably isn't healthy. My very sanity is attached to your well-being. I know that isn't healthy, but that is just how it is now. Maybe you had the right idea running away from me the first time. It's too late for you now. You are mine. This dark, protective, possessive love is your responsibility now. Well, save the dark stuff for the bedroom. I listened as he chuckled lightly. I know that he has been struggling with his darkness. Something happened when he became Anubis, and it enhanced the battle he already had. He now could control himself better when I was by his side. I think to a certain extent, this was how it was for all mates. It was just more extreme for Scion. I love all of you, Scion, even the darkness that you fear, but you don't have to worry about that when I am with you. I'll protect you, Scion, even from yourself. His feet slowly shuffled to a stop as he stared at me. Then slowly he dipped his head down, tenderly taking my lips with his own. I felt the sparks and the sweet heat of his lips. It was like his touch was medicine to my soul. No one else existed. There were no problems in the world. It was just us. If only it could really be like this. Welcome to the Nova Pack. I heard Nadine's voice awaken me from the magical cloud I was on with Scion. Luna, meet your pack. Note, I'm going to try to update on Monday the 5th. I stared in front of me, but I didn't see anything. I glanced up at Scion, seeing his brows pinched together. Cloaked? How? Why? I heard Gia ask from behind me. We don't have a lot of trust for others, Nadine said with a small shrug. And like I said, the Nova Pack isn't your normal pack. She nodded her head at Scion in the direction in front of her. Well, I wish I weren't in so much pain, right? I wanted to relish this moment of meeting others who were originally from the Chaos Pack. We walked forward, and the world began to change. I was looking at nothing but dense woods one second, and the next a modern-looking community. There were stores, maintained roads, and houses in the distance. I heard a bellow in the distance and could see various shapeshifters fighting against a monstrous-looking creature. If I recall, they were called a worm. It was a dragon without wings and legs. I felt Scion pause and glare in that direction. Oh, it is just a sparring session. He is harmless. It is a big, scaly pet, Nadine said, motioning for us to follow her. Dimitri moved back so that he was now walking beside Scion and me. Scion's eyes moved to him and then back forward as someone hastily approached. I'm here. Let me see the wound. An older woman said as she hiked her sleeves up over her arms. She was short and stout, looking very no-nonsense. This is one of our healers, Suzetta. She is a witch who has Dryad in her lineage. She is the most experienced healer here, and I trust her completely. Nadine added as the woman approached me. Oh yes, you are definitely going to need patching up. Suzetta's eyes moved over to Connor and Gia as she clicked her tongue. You two are lucky to be alive. Okay, bring them. Scion stayed with me the whole time during the healing process. He growled and protested greatly when they asked him to set me down. He was like a child that had his candy taken from him. He insisted they could tend to me while in his arms. Finally, he relented, but he wasn't leaving my side. He held my hand and watched me with a predatory intensity. I was surprised that the healing process was quite painless. I didn't feel anything. Suzetta and another healer sprinkled something over my back. They said some sort of spell and then repeated the process. It was only an hour later when they finally told me the healing was complete. They brought me new clothes and left me to change. Scion was still treating me like my back was gashed open. He insisted on dressing me, and his eyes flickered to mine with every movement. "Are you sure you are all right?" Scion asked as he helped me to my feet. "Sion, it is like nothing happened. I feel fine." I interlaced my fingers with his as we stepped out of the room. We were in a small medical facility. They put me in one room, and Gia was taken to another room. "Your friend is still being healed, but you are free to go. Your companions are waiting for you just outside." A young woman said from behind a desk, "It is great to finally meet you, Luna." The woman said, and I gave her a small smile. I didn't know any of them. It was hard to feel like their leader. As we approached the door, I could hear loud voices. Sion's arm came around me protectively as we slowly opened it. "I don't like it. What are we supposed to do now? The idea was that she would lead us here. She is part of another pack. She is our Luna. She is their Luna." Okay, it seemed like some were not okay with the situation. As the door opened completely, I could see a crowd of people had gathered. Our group stood protectively in front of the door, blocking the steps from anyone who wished to approach. The crowd drew quiet, and all their eyes were now on me. A man with amber-colored eyes stepped forward. He came as close as Dmitri would allow him before he stopped. He looked up at me with a kind smile on his face. He looked to be the same age as me. His hair was the color of the sun, with skin that was so white it almost glowed. "My name is Doug. I am the acting leader of the Nova Pack. It is a pleasure to finally meet you, Luna Clover." I heard some quiet murmuring in the pack. Their whispers were meant for me to hear. One of them said that I was intended to be Doug's mate. I know Sion heard this too, because his fingers tightened around me as a low growl came from his throat. "Please, just call me Clover." I glanced around in front of me. I looked at Logan, Connor, Kai, Odell, and realized Joey was missing. I started to scan through the crowd, but he wasn't there. "Where is Joey?" I asked Dmitri. His eyes moved to mine as a small smile reached his lips. "Joey has found his mate." The two of them went to talk. I didn't need him to say any more. For most, when you find your mate, they immediately claim them. Usually the claiming is very intimate. I felt a sense of relief in my chest. I am so glad that Joey found his fated mate. "Now what is going to happen?" I heard someone ask from the crowd, bringing my attention back. "Relax and have some respect." Doug snapped his head in the direction of the voice, and the crowd grew quiet. It was obvious the pack respected him. The pack is conflicted since they don't want to absorb into another pack. They thought you would be moving here. Dimitri's voice rang into my mind. "I think each member can be free to choose. Obviously, my place is with Sion. I think if Doug is doing a good job here, there is no reason the Nova Pack can't be handed over to him." "I don't know, Clover. The pack wants their alpha's daughter to be their leader. I think the best we can do is make the offer. If anyone wishes to join the Chance Pack, they can. Otherwise, they will stay under Doug as their new leader." "How is he, by the way? Is he alpha material?" I glanced at Dmitri, who nodded his head. "Doug is a good leader. He is calm and level-headed. He is strong, too." That was all I needed to hear. I looked over the pack and then at Doug. "We can have a discussion later about the Nova Pack. Right now I need to get to work on learning to control my powers." "Right, that is long overdue," Stilt said, sitting on the porch railing next to me. This time it didn't shock me. It seemed like this was his thing. "You can work with," Doug began to say, but Stilts cut him off. "Me," Stilt said. "I am here to help her, and no offense, but I am guided by a goddess, so anyone else can stuff it." He stood up on the railing and looked over at Dmitri. "Bring the beasts to the training ground. We will start with them." "Are you sure you should be getting right into this?" Sion frowned as his fingers traced over my side. "I'm fine. You don't need to worry. We have bigger issues that need our attention." I glanced behind me. Odell, can you wait here for Jaya? I'll wait for her. Connor volunteered, and I smiled. It was obvious he had an interest in her. I glanced up at Sion, who nodded his head, giving Connor permission. Everyone, steer clear of the training grounds. We all know that a Shaya's power can be touchy while they are learning control. Doug spoke clearly as he eyed the pack. Don't worry about the other stuff. Clover and I will discuss the Nova pack later. All right, follow me, Dimitri said as the crowd parted for us. Sion's tight grip never left me as we moved through everyone. He didn't loosen his grip on my side until we were walking up a steep hill. The grass was just below my knees as we marched upwards. At the top of the hill was a clear level field. Perfect. Now get the beasts, Stilt said, popping up in the middle of the field. At times his eyes flickered blue. I was certain this meant Shiva was watching during these moments. Well, it's time, my boy. I snapped my head up to the familiar voice. Standing only a couple of feet away was Riapis. He had the same round-billed hat on that covered his eyes. He had a long weed stem hanging out of his mouth that moved side to side. Go away, Sion growled. Your mate is busy now and is in a safe area. This is the perfect time for you to work on your own skills. In short, you have work to do. Also, you don't have a choice. Riapis grinned, letting the weed drop from his mouth. I looked up to see Sion's eyes flickering angrily. Honestly, I hated this. I felt like I needed to be with Sion. I am sure he felt the same way about me. We were always being separated, and that wasn't how it was supposed to be for mates. Unfortunately, we weren't like most normal mates. We both had new powers that we needed to learn about. And for some reason, we have attracted the attention of the gods. You plan to take him to the spirit realm? I asked, and watched as Riapis nodded his head. How long are you going to keep him there? What if he has trouble coming back on his own? I glared at him as he titled his hat up to reveal his eyes. How long are you going to stay here at the Nova Pack? He asked with a glint in his eyes. Until you master your powers, right? Well, now it seems like you have your answers with me then. But you told Shiva. I heard Stilt say from the field as Riapis snapped his gaze in his direction. Shiva's not here, though, is she? Riapis smirked with a shrug. Yet there was a strange look in his eyes, almost as if he wanted to provoke her. I need to be with Clover, Sion said as he looked down at me. He wasn't saying it like he needed me, though. It was more like in the tone that I needed him. Was he worried about me being here in the Nova Pack? I wonder if he was concerned hearing that I was intended to be Doug's mate. Well then, don't take a long time figuring out how to use your powers. Riapis stared at him unwavering. You need this, Sion. You need to learn to walk in the in-between realm. You'll be cloaked from sight. This will be invaluable in recovering your pack. My lips parted slightly as I stared at Riapis. He was doing this for Sion. He basically spelled it out right there. He was going to train Sion so he could walk around undetected between the two realms. You could lose her without this, if a certain demon gets a hold of her. Riapis shook his head. I can't claim her until she dies, and she can be kept where not even you can get to her. What demon? Sion growled. The demon of demons. The demon king Marcus. Riapis stopped and pursed his lips together. Knowledge is power, but it is also dangerous. Just know that greater things are at work here, powers that you can't even imagine. He sighed loudly and shook his head. We have work to do. Do you understand? This needs to happen now while there is still time, while you still have someone you can protect. Okay, I didn't like that last part, and neither did Sion. His fingers pulled me tight against his side as he narrowed his eyes at Riapis. What do they want with her? To drain her. They want her essence, but they can keep her alive and continue to drain her over and over again. It is a cruel fate. But he won't risk exposing himself, so as long as they don't get a hold of her, he won't come for her. She is just an insurance policy anyways. There are greater beings he is after. Riapis trailed off quietly. Clover. Sion's voice was a pained whisper. I looked up at him and could see the hesitation in his eyes. I was dying inside, knowing I would have to be parted from him. Even an hour was too long, and I didn't know when I would see him again. I had to put on a brave face for him. Sion. I reached my hand up to rest on his cheek. I gave him a faint smile as I took in a deep, calming breath. I watched as his irises flashed in color as he battled with his emotions. I understood it. since I felt the same way too. Luckily, I was able to hide it better. This had nothing to do with being strong or brave. This was survival instincts. You were not supposed to be away from your mate all the time. It wasn't natural. I needed Sion, and he needed me. How would he be without me there? Who would help him control his emotions? Why do I have to keep getting ripped apart from my heart? Sion whispered into my hand as he kissed it lightly. You can do this, Sion. Master your power quickly and come back to me. I felt a pressure in my chest that I smiled through. We both have tasks that we need to complete. I'll learn how to control my powers, and you will learn yours. Then, together, we will reclaim your pack. Then no more being apart, Sion said, and I nodded my head. You'll be around me so much you will suffocate, I promise. He smiled and shook his head. Impossible. You can't suffocate on oxygen. He leaned his head down to mine. I love you, Sion. Only and always you, my love, Sion said as his lips melted against mine. Don't worry, we will keep her safe, Kai said as I breathed in Sion's breath. Keep me safe? Sion was the one who would be all alone. Who would keep him safe? I know he was strong, but he still needed someone. No one wanted to be alone. And I can't exactly say having Riapus around is company. Looks like your first lesson has arrived, Riapus said as a loud bellowing sound echoed from the field. Time for yours, Anubis. One moment, Sion was there. His head was leaning against mine and I was breathing in his sweet breath. Then the next, he was gone. Again. I took in a sharp breath, wanting nothing more than to follow after him. I know this was necessary, but why was there this heavy pain in my chest? Why did I feel like something terrible was going to happen? Habit? I couldn't do this to myself. I needed to push on and do what I came here to do. Clover, Kai said from behind me. I just want you to know that I am here. I nodded my head, staring at the empty space in front of me. Sion was alone. The loud bellow echoed out again, making me turn my head. My eyes fell on a large, bull-like beast, dark brown, shaggy fur with large, protruding muscles. It had 2 large horns from its monstrous bull head. Looks like my first lesson will be on a minotaur. Okay, I needed to focus. Sion was learning to control his powers, and now I would learn to control mine. Note, several apps have been selling my book unauthorized. Dear thief, stop stealing my books. Okay? Thanks. Next update will be by the 9th. Sion. The world changed around me. One moment I was with my angel, and the next I was plunged into darkness. I looked around angrily until my eyes landed on the source. How dare you? I wasn't done telling her. You never would have been done. It never would have been enough time. Trust me, this is something I know all too well. Everyone wants to tell their loved ones goodbye one last time. At first, I used to accommodate this, but it was never long enough for them. This isn't the same thing, I growled. I couldn't believe this man. I understand I made a deal with him for my life. I even understand that I have to learn to control my powers, but at least let me properly say goodbye to the woman I love. I felt anxious leaving her. Everyone was saying she was safe, but my insides burned with rage. The moment we stepped into the Nova Pack, I felt the hairs on my arms rise. I didn't want to leave her there. Something seemed off. I needed to hurry back to her. I wanted to warn her. I wanted to tell her to stay close to our officers. Riapus was right. I would never be prepared to leave her. That wasn't what this was about. This was about me warning her. Maybe it was nothing. The pack didn't seem excited that their Luna had returned, though most of that was because they were disappointed. They expected her to take Doug as her alpha. Just thinking about that made me want to rip him apart. He is lucky he didn't look at her in a lustful way, or there would be pieces of little Dudgy everywhere. We should have brought Clover with us. I sighed, trying to shake this feeling in my chest. You need to learn to control your powers without her, Riapus said, stepping towards me. I shook my head as he stared at me. What is it? Something felt off. The moment we stepped through the barrier, I don't feel comfortable leaving Clover there. There was this strange sense of dread. Is that right? I watched as a knowing smile spread over his lips. You know something? You know what it is? Is she in danger? I squeezed my hands together as they trembled angrily. The world is in danger. Riapus shrugged. The cock Kai bastard. She is my world. What about her? Well, I guess that will depend on you, Better master your skills quickly. Gods and their sadistic games, I don't give a shit about the greater picture. To hell with the world. That is their job to take care of it. My job is to protect Clover and my pack. But no, they insist on playing these idiotic games by pulling the puppet strings. They try to trick the other powers by saying they are not directly manipulating anything, when, clearly, they are. They all are. I am not a piece on your chessboard. I am not interested in your games. We are the ones who suffer from you pulling the strings. Suffer. Pfft. You are alive because of these games. You seem to forget who you are talking to. I am not your buddy. I am not your pal. I am not your pack member. I am a god. Your god, Scion. And I have given you a power that will allow you to protect the ones you love. I'm going to teach you to use it so that I won't have to interfere. I watched as he straightened up. He tilted his hat up as his eyes bore into mine. You want to protect your mate? Then do it. You want to get back to her? Then go. I'm not stopping you. I watched as a smirk curled over his lips. Oh, but you'll have to get past the sandworms, and on your own. So I suggest you embrace what you are so that you can fight. Oh. And what in the actual hell, Repus? A woman's voice cut through the dark world like a knife. A blue light appeared, followed by the goddess with blue hair, Shiva. Not now, Repus said, trying to sound annoyed, but he looked like he had anticipated this. It is always not now with you. I'm not having it. Shiva clicked her tongue and folded her arms across her chest. As she did, frost spread across the ground, creeping under my feet. It's a school day, Shiva. You should come when I am not with a student. Riapus said, flashing her a broad grin. That student is the reason I am here. My student? I watched as Riapus turned from me to face Shiva. There was something between these two, but I imagine, being immortal gods, they were bound to have history together. You can't play these games, Riapus. You're going to make them mad. Shiva hissed out in a harsh whisper. I don't give a damn about them. I told you that before. I do what I want, not what they want. If our interests align, fine, but I am not going out of my way to make them happy. Don't you think they've caused enough trouble? They don't mean to cause trouble. Bullshit. You don't really buy that? Or are you that naive? Get off your... Damn it, Shiva. Admit it. They are the reasons you sealed yourself away from everyone. You hid from the world, you locked yourself away with your pets to pass the time. You made yourself a prisoner because you were afraid. Afraid of what? Me. The atmosphere felt tense, and the thick air made it even harder to breathe. This was a private conversation that somehow I was caught in the middle of. Yet it was like a train wreck. You couldn't help but watch. Besides, I was curious what was going on. Maybe there was some clue about this them Riapus was speaking about. No, I heard Shiva's voice whisper out. You don't get to say that. You don't get to put the blame on others instead of yourself. You didn't give me a chance to say anything. You wouldn't even hear me out. You heard a piece of the information, and that was it. Poof. Gone. Sealed away from me. Now you pop out all casual like nothing happened. You know what? I watched as Riapus stormed up to Shiva and grabbed her wrist. She yanked it back as ice shot up his arm, but he didn't let go. We are having this talk now. We are not doing this anymore. I don't want to talk about this. I watched as Riapus moved his arm around her, holding her flush against his body. Then, without hesitation, he planted his lips on hers. At first, she fought against him, but slowly her body changed. Her arms moved up around his neck. I watched as his hand began to slide up her back, as their kissing became more intense. Here I am, stuck. Did they even know I was still here? Maybe I had been quiet for too long. If I made a sound now, would I just be reminding them I was here, or was I now considered a pervert? I didn't want to watch this. I needed to get back to Clover. I turned my head away so that I at least wasn't just standing here staring at them. I waited for the sounds to quiet before I glanced back in their direction. The reason I was late that day wasn't the reason you were told. Yes, I was intimate with the celestial maiden. Repus gripped Shiva tight as she tried to break free of him. But that was before you. Not once was it during, I never would have done that to you. Then why were you with her? Shiva spat out. You are such a hot-tempered woman for having powers of ice. Repus pulled her closer. I had gotten you a present. That is why I went to see her. Then you made your assumptions because busybody moon can't mind her own business. She wanted us separated so that she could use us. Everything she does is a calculated plan. Even now, I'm sure she knew this would happen, so she felt okay with meddling. You thought I was cheating and didn't even give me a chance to explain. You cloaked yourself from me so I couldn't find you. I could see the shocked face of the goddess. She looked almost numb. Her strong composure was gone, and she didn't look like the fierce goddess she did moments ago. You were getting me a present? I watched as Riapus nodded his head, a small smile reaching his lips. You and your damn grudge. I hope you have grown up a little since then. Luckily, we are immortal gods, and your little temper tantrum was just a torturously long blink of an eye of our lives. What kind of present? Shiva asked. Do you still have it? I listened as Riapus laughed. The dark wall he had up around him faded, and I could see the human quality about him. I could see the way he was looking at Shiva, and now it all made sense. His cold demeanor and harsh undertone, it all reflected someone who was wounded. I am sure I would be much worse if something had torn Clover and I apart like that. I felt like I understood Riapus more at this moment. Yes, I've kept it for you. I know how much you like rare creatures, and I remembered that the Celestial Maiden had primordial pets and immortal animals. There was one that I knew was perfect for you. I watched as Riapus snapped his fingers, and an icy-looking seal appeared. It looked like it was made of solid ice. A crystal seal? Shiva stared up at Riapus's eyes, and I was afraid they were going to make out again. No offense to their sweet moment, but they didn't need me here as a witness to it. I finally decided to clear my throat to let them know I was still here. You are still here? Riapus finally acknowledged my presence. You are wasting time. I would hurry back to Clover if I were you. Exactly how do I manage that? You need to move between realms. Once there, you'll have to fight against the sandworms. You'll need to use your power to make them submit to you. Once they learn you are their master, they will not bother you again. After that, you will be in the in-between realm. You will be able to see both places and walk around unseen. I don't get it. Is that all I have to do? I watched as Riapus smirked. You really don't get it. You already have everything you need inside of you. Mastering it will only require one thing, for you to accept who you are. You are not the same person anymore, Scion. You have to let go of Alpha Scion of the Chance Pack. You are much more than him now. But I am still Alpha Scion of the Chance Pack. Why do I have to let that go? I asked and watched as Shiva placed her hand on Riapus's arm. He words things badly. What he means is, you must accept who else you are. You need to embrace your new powers and fully embrace the new you. Then your powers will be one with you. They will answer your call when you need them. This is what Clover must do too. She has a barrier up inside of herself, keeping her wolf and Shea separate. I watched as her eyes flickered blue, as a frown formed on her lips. She is going to need her wolf at full strength. Wait, why? I asked as Shiva looked back at me. She's going to have to fight. Alone. Fight? You mean while learning her powers? Or is there something else? I felt my eyes flicker as dark energy crept through my veins. The Nova Pack. What is it? I felt like something was off there. The welcoming seemed to fall flat, as if they were anticipating something else. Shiva nodded her head. Something else would be accurate. I clenched my teeth together. Damn nit. I need to be with her now. This one is Clover's fight, Shiva said as I felt the dark swirling inside of me beating against the pink energy there. It is never just Clover's fight because she has me. Use that, Shiva said as Riapus snorted. His lips curled up slightly as he looked at me. But can you get to her in time? Riapus sighed, clicking his tongue and shrugging his shoulders. This wasn't some reverse psychology class. I'm not a moron. I don't need him to say that to motivate me. Going to Clover was motivation enough, but hearing she might be in trouble fueled me. I didn't need Riapus' commentary about getting there in time. I had a feeling his attention would now shift from me. Now that he was seemingly back together with Shiva, I think he will be preoccupied. Why was Clover going to have to fight? What was going on in the Nova Pack? She was their Luna. Would they really hurt her? This didn't make sense. It didn't have to make sense, to be honest. I just needed to get back to Clover so I could protect her. I felt her pink ribbons of energy inside of me. There was a small tug from them that almost helped guide me. Then my insides began to spin as black dust swam around me. Was this my darkness? My energy? It was so different from Clover's warm pink glow. I wasn't afraid of it. Instead, I allowed it to drive me forward. This energy wanted the same thing I did, to be reunited with Clover. We had the same goal. I could feel what it wanted, as if it was a life of its own. The same way I felt my lupine and lichen before that. We were one. This was me. My vision became blurry. No, it wasn't my vision, it was the world. I was shifting between the realms. Only now, it was as if I was stuck in something else. There was a tan haze blocking my view from both planes. A colossal creature rose out of the ground. It looked like a giant worm with rough tile-like shapes over its body. Then those shapes met with circular rings that encompassed the whole body. It had a wide mouth full of many sharp, jagged fangs. No eyes that I could see, but I don't think it needed any. It could sense my energy and body movement. The worm bellowed at me and began to create a suction. It was inhaling the air that was trying to pull me closer to it. Did this creature think it was going to eat me? I didn't feel fear as I faced the worm fully. Instead, an overwhelming surge of confidence embraced me. Suddenly, it was like a veil was being lifted. Dark energy swarmed around me like a tornado and then fell upon me like a blanket. This was it. The peace I had been afraid of. The veins in my arm turned black as the darkness entered my body. It cascaded all over me, absorbing inside of me. I had left a part of it here before. Now it was fully joining with me. Riapus was right. I was different now. The energy began to awaken inside of me, and I felt the new power swarming. At this moment, another worm came from the side. It didn't stop, though. It kept coming, hungry for my energy. The pale clay creature blurred towards me at incredible speed. I lifted my hand as I stared at the worm. A black orb began to glow from my fingertips as the monster closed in on me. And then there was an explosion of gray meeting black. A wave of tremors rippled over the ground, sending sand clouds in the air, followed by a moment of deathly silence. I tried to look through the thick cloud as I shielded my face with my arm. There was the sound of one worm screeching, and then a chorus of bellows rippled through the air from all around me. Note: the next chapter will be up by the 13th. Clover, you aren't trying hard enough. I think you need some motivation, Stilts said, turning his head to look at the Minotaur. Let him run her down. Hell no, Dimitri growled. She needs a push, and besides, she has her wolf. She will heal just fine. Stilts said, looking back at me. You've got to be kidding me, little man. Kai snarled as he stared at Stilts. You can all act this way, but we need her to get a handle on her powers. She is in her head too much. She needs to react and not think. Stilts stared at me. I watched as a smirk spread over his lips. I knew that look didn't mean anything good. 1 second, he was there, the next he vanished. Then the Minotaur bellowed out loudly. I saw Stilts whip his cane in its direction and a spark flew out. The beast was now at a full angry charge and heading in my direction. Okay, I didn't want to become flattened like a pancake. Stilts was right. I would heal and be fine, but who wanted that? This should be easy, right? I just needed to connect with my Shea powers like I did before. All right, do something. I watched as the beast drew closer and closer. Anytime now. Stop, beast, stop. Why isn't it working? Why can't I feel it like I did before? I closed my eyes and braced for impact. Suddenly, something crashed into me and grabbed around me as a rushing breeze blew past me. I opened my eyes to a chest. I looked up to see Kai holding me close. His eyes were laced with concern one moment and then anger as he flipped them in the direction Stilts was. What the hell? This isn't a game. This is my Luna. Kai growled angrily. No, it isn't a game. How much time do you think we have? She needs some tough love. I felt Kai grip into me protectively as a low growl left his throat. It's okay, Kai. I have to get this down, I said, and he looked at me with disapproving eyes. Sion would never allow this. Good thing Sion isn't here then. I gave him a crooked smile and he sighed. I won't watch you get hurt. It's not like I want to get hurt. I laughed, but he clearly didn't find it amusing. Yeah, I'm not down with this plan either. Odell snorted, crossing her arms next to Logan. Well, then I suggest... I stopped talking as I watched several people come walking up the hill. I thought Doug had told them to stay away from this area. What is going on? Dimitri asked as he trotted over towards me. He kept his body to the side so that it blocked me. It was at this moment I realized that even Dimitri was not fully trusting of the pack. I watched as Nadine and Doug walked with stiff, agitated movements. You could see the two of them talking back and forth, but in a tone that was too quiet for me to pick up. Nadine looked livid, and Doug looked, well, I couldn't tell how Doug looked. There seemed to be a lot of different emotions on his face. His eyes met with mine as they both continued to approach me. Careful, you might be the acting alpha, but I serve the pack's true leader. Dimitri growled as I stepped next to him. I've got this, I said as I tapped his side gently. I looked back at Doug and Nadine and quirked one of my brows up. Is there a problem? There is, Doug said as his eyes drilled into mine. It's about to be your problem, Nadine growled as she stepped closer to me. I don't know what is going on, but if you don't back away from my Luna. Logan growled and I lifted up my hand to stop him. Let's see what is going on. At the very least, I thought we should hear him out before they go all bloodlust. I looked back as Doug and his amber eyes settled on me. Can we talk? Privately? I heard his voice enter into my mind. I think it will be best to talk to you alone, first. So, talk. He was already talking to me privately through the mind link, but for some reason this wasn't good enough. I watched as he pursed his lips and looked out in the distance. I didn't understand this. My brows pinched together as I tried to study his face. He met with my eyes and offered me a small smile. Please, give me a moment to speak with Doug alone, I said, hearing the immediate objections. I wasn't asking. I continued to look at Doug, and he held a smile, nodding his head at me to follow him. Clover, Odell protested, but she stopped with just one glance from me. I know none of them like this, but I was just going to talk. I didn't understand why he wanted to talk this way, but I was sure there was a reason. I followed behind Doug, glancing behind me once to reassure the others. I watched as Kai and Logan paced side to side while Odell kept her eyes fixated on me. Thanks, Clover. I looked back at Doug, who continued to slowly stroll through the field. What is this all about? I asked. He remained quiet, slowly walking farther away. The sun shined on his hair as the wind played with his golden strands. He finally stopped walking as we reached the far end, where the trees greeted us. He turned around and looked at me. I stood there quietly, waiting for what he was going to say. He didn't say a word. Instead, he stepped into me and wrapped his arms around me. Just hold still. He whispered, but that wasn't enough for me. I tried to push him back again, only he held on to me firmly. Please, trust me. What are you? I started to say as I felt a tear land on my cheek. He was crying. I stood there shocked as he held me close. What was going on? Run, Clover. His words were not what I expected. Run away from here. Run away from this life. Disappear where you can hide and be safe. I felt his arms squeeze me into him gently. He was holding me as if I was someone precious. He was saying goodbye to I pressed back from him and looked up at him. He kept me captive in his arms, but left enough gap so that I could look up at his face. What are you talking about? They all just want to use you. All of them. You can't trust anyone. What happened to your mother, we can't let happen to you. There is a spy here, Clover. I don't know who it is, but I am certain one is here. They have probably already made them aware of our location. A fight is coming. You need to run and not stop. Disappear from the world. I glanced back at the pack members in the distance. Wait a minute. What is all that about? Doug sighed. They want me to claim you as my mate. It is either I claim you or they want a battle for the title. That is why I brought you away from everyone. I'm giving you the chance to run. I'll hold them off as long as I can. Run so that you can live. Your parents, they were good to my family. It is because of them that I am here. I'm an unwanted hybrid. Part vampire and part wolf. Your parents gave my parents a place to live without worry. My father was your father's officer. The Nova Pack naturally shifted into my care when I was of age. Doug, I'm not going anywhere. I'm here to fight. I'm here to end this. Those people are my friends and I love my mate. I trust him unconditionally. I won't run in fear. I will eliminate what should be feared. I watched as he shook his head with a frown. Clover, the pack has a way of doing things here. They will make you run the gauntlet to prove you are worthy to be their leader. What if I just hand the title over to you? I don't want it. I am not a leader. I am an officer. This is your pack. Most of them want you to claim it, but like I said, it isn't safe. This pack is dangerous because I don't know who the mole is. I could see his eyes pleading with me. I can't keep you safe here. You have to leave. I can keep myself safe. I stared up at him, still seeing tears in his eyes. What are those tears for? He was acting like I was just given a terminal sentence. You don't deserve this. I tried so hard. I wanted this pack to be your safe haven. Are you certain there is a spy here? How do you know? Some time ago, I sent out an expedition group. They were searching for more answers about what is going on right now. It was shortly after we encountered the Voidless for the first time. They vanished, and we never heard from them again. They left in secret. No one knew outside of our pack. The chances that none of them ever returned tells us the enemy had annihilated them. All of them? Not one made it back. I already had my suspicions before, but this cemented it. The only others who would have known about the expedition were the Omegas serving us that night. Which one, though? I watched as he shook his head. I am not going to lie. Hearing Omega had me thinking of Hazel, which was probably silly. There wasn't a connection there, right? Okay, one thing at a time. So you don't want to be the leader of the Nova Pack? I watched as he shook his head. No, I mean I can if it will help you, but I think we can give them a choice. If they want to come with me to the Chance Pack, they can. Like I said, it isn't that simple. You have to run the gauntlet and prove you are their leader first. What is this gauntlet? I asked and listened to him sigh. You will have to fight against the top pack warriors and win against each of them. Can't I just fight against you? I watched as he titled his head to the side in deep thought. If I challenged you for the position of Alpha, then yes. Good, we will do that. But if I lose, as the winner, I can determine your fate. I watched as he smiled, nodding his head. They know how I fight, though. I can't hold back. You understand what happens if I win, right? I shook my head. I get kicked out. His amber eyes looked at me as he slowly shook his head. You would become mine. That is why the gauntlet would be the better idea. Not if we potentially have a fight heading our way. We need to end this fast. Yeah, but you can't beat me, I said certainly, and watched as a crooked smile reached his lips. You haven't seen me fight. Remember, I am not a normal wolf. I smiled as I looked at him. What a coincidence, neither am I. I was talking about more than being part Shea. I was also connected to Sion and, through him, Anubis. I had Amput's powers in me. I felt them stirring inside of me. I imagined they were responding to Sion and what he was doing now. They wanted to be by his side and were waking up. I can't just let you win. I snorted and stepped away from him. I just hope your ego doesn't take too big of a hit when this is over. He laughed. My ego? You are overly confident, aren't you? You do know I was chosen as the leader here for a reason. Clover, like I said, you can't win against me. I was confident. I could feel it in Sheena's bones. She was ready for the challenge, and so was I. There wasn't a chance that I would lose. No matter what, I wouldn't belong to Doug. Besides, it was a moot point. If by some crazy reason I lost, the moment Sion returned, it would be over. He wouldn't allow it. He would challenge anyone on my behalf and kill if he had to. Not that it would come to this. I had alpha blood, and this was my pack. Nature alone gives me the advantage. The wolf part in him will want to submit to me. As we walked back to the others, there was a part of me that wondered if this was what he wanted all along. I had trust issues. However, if this was the case, all the more reason to put him in his place. I was a trained fighter and had real experience. No matter what challenge he presented, I could win against him. I was certain of it. I could see all the curious eyes on us as we approached. My officers instantly came to my side as Doug moved to face the Nova Pack. I challenged Clover to the position of leader of the Nova Pack, Doug said loudly, making the Nova Pack cheer loudly. My officers were not happy, though, and Nadine roared ferociously at Doug. Dimitri grabbed my shoulder as he glared in front of him. You don't have to do this. He cannot win against me, I said, feeling a dark energy encircling me. Sion felt closer suddenly, and I could feel his energy elevating. He was fighting. I felt the wind swirl around me, bringing me the faintest hint of his scent. Something primal in me was sparking to life. Something new and powerful. For the first time, I felt Sheena and my Shea powers at the same time. They were being embodied by a dark cloud in my mind. I opened my eyes to see Doug shift into an enormous light blonde wolf. "Stand aside," I said calmly to my officers. Energy was twisting inside of me, combining with the others. Usually I stopped it, I kept it separated, but this time I embraced the change. The moment I did, everything felt clearer. There was a mental clarity that almost knew what to do. Doug charged at me. It was at a speed that was hard to keep track of, almost. Yet in this moment I couldn't help the smirk that reached my lips as I connected with Sheena. "Quick and easy?" I asked, and Sheena snorted, "Slow and domineering." Sheena answered as black wisps enveloped me. A moment of darkness, and then I stood on 4 feet. The blonde wolf leaped towards me as I reared up to clash against him. Not as a wolf, not as a Shea, not as Anput, but as all 3. Note. Next update 16th. P.S. To the one who is stealing my book, I have made an official copyright complaint with the lawyers. Doug lunged at me. His snow-white fangs were exposed as his wolf moved closer. He came at me at lightning speed, but it was as if it was in slow motion for me. I stood there waiting for him with confidence. Black smoky wisps escaped from me as Sheena's 4 legs held our weight evenly. On the outside, it would look like I was wide open to the attack, but this was their mistake. A second before he should have made contact, I acted. I charged into him. Sheena's paws slashed into him, sending black electricity at him. His body slammed onto the earth, skipping across it before coming to a stop. I barely touched him. I was certain of that. I didn't want to hurt him yet. His wolf wasn't moving. I took a hesitant step forward. My ears were back and my tail was lowered. Oh God, I didn't mean to. Maybe it wasn't as bad as it looked. That was only wishful thinking. My nose caught the scent of blood only a moment before I saw it trickle from his body. I did this? I wasn't trying. It was an accident. I hurt him. I quickly shifted back and ran to his side. Everyone was holding still, just staring. They were in shock, too. My knees came down near his head as I tried to assess the damage. Nothing. There were no wounds on the outside of him, yet the blood trickled from his mouth. This meant his injuries were internal. Doug. I felt like my lungs were robbed of oxygen as I tried to call out for him. Was he breathing? Gods, it didn't look like it. "Doug!" I yelled, and bodies began to swarm in. Some pack members, some my officers. I felt Kai's hand on my back as the sounds of whispers began to litter the air. I didn't mean to, I whispered as Kai shushed me gently. It was a challenge. These things happen. Kai said as I stared at Doug. These things? What does that mean? Injuries? Yes, injuries happen, but death shouldn't. I don't even know what I did to him, but I was starting to understand Sion's fear of this darkness. It was strong, more powerful than I had anticipated. If this was me taking it easy, he is going to be okay, right? I managed to say in a fragile voice. I was shaken. This was not my intention. Did you see that? What is she? Can you imagine having a leader that powerful? It wasn't even close. Did she kill him? He isn't breathing. The whispers began to all blur together as I stared at the still wolf. Get him to the healers, quick, I heard Nadine growl. I watched as his body was lifted and they raced away with him. I stayed there on my knees, trying to make sense of the situation. I felt like a murderer. Is there any chance of survival? My mind was racing as I replayed the moment over and over in my mind. I know I hardly put anything into it. What did that mean then? How strong was I? Clover? Clover? I heard a familiar voice, but I just kept staring in front of me. Clover, what happened? I saw knees of someone kneeling in front of me. Then I felt hands on my cheeks, lifting my gaze up, allowing my eyes to focus on the face in front of me. It was Joey. Before, I was so curious about his mate. Now it all seemed to fall short. Not far behind him, there was someone, but I couldn't look at them. I tried to swallow the cotton in my mouth. It was a struggle to even breathe. Their voices blurred together as I blinked blankly in front of me. I wanted to shut down and pretend it never happened. I wanted to ignore that I had just killed someone by accident. However, Doug had told me that there could be a spy here, and there was a chance the enemy was coming. I needed to get my head right. Slowly, I willed myself to move. I lifted myself up, finding my legs and the strength to lead. I had just removed the Nova Pack's leader. This was who would have led the pack, who was next in charge. I know the position is basically mine, but they need a voice they trust. I looked over at those who were still around and then beyond them. I could faintly hear children laughing and playing. I looked at the houses with families and loved ones. This is what it was to be a leader. It meant you pushed aside your pain and focused on the safety of others. I couldn't think about what had just happened. What if an army was almost upon us now? We needed to be ready. Who was Doug's beta? I asked, glancing over the people. That was me. I turned my head to look at Nadine. How are the Novapac's defenses? I asked, and I watched her raise a brow at me. We don't really have defenses since we are cloaked. So anyone can walk through it? I asked and watched her nod slowly. It isn't a barrier, it just gives the illusion that nothing is here. Damn, that wasn't what I wanted to hear. We have scouts, though. If anyone sees anything that could be concerning, they will send out an alert. I guess that was something. No one has warned us at this point. Well, considering they were still alive, JM Snap, oh for mate's sake, stary elted, all rights reserved. All right, listen up, I said, filling my lungs up with oxygen. We need to assemble all of the warriors. We need those who can't fight to be in the most center buildings. I don't know if there is anything to be concerned about, but we are going to prepare for war. I heard the gasps, and I scanned over everyone. I was hoping that maybe the spy was among them. Maybe if they knew we knew, then it would get called off. If it was even coming, I would rather be prepared and look overly cautious than to not prepare at all and be massacred. Luna, what is coming? Nadine asked as her brows pinched together. I don't know, but Doug was concerned a fight was heading our way. You heard your Luna. You have seconds to clear out and get organized. Move, Nadine growled, and immediately everyone dispersed. Except for my group and Nadine. She stepped closer, and her eyes were fixated on me. What did Doug tell you? She asked, and I explained everything. She nodded her head, showing that she was already aware of the spy situation. She told me that there was still no evidence to validate his concerns. Only theories. He pleaded for me to run. He didn't want to fight. I didn't mean to. I trailed off quietly. Of course, you didn't mean to. You have had so much happen to you, and you were just freshly marked. You have no idea what your powers are like. Dimitri said, trying to reassure me, thanks, but that wasn't going to make me feel better. What were those black sparks that flew from you? Nadine asked, and I pursed my lips together. I didn't exactly know myself. It wasn't just my power as input. It was like everything was now combined together. I didn't understand it to know what it was, or what it did. I think that's enough questions, Joey said, making me turn to look at him. His green eyes were looking at me, full of concern. I stared at him for a second before my gaze shifted to the person behind him. A woman with raven-colored hair, sun-kissed skin, and violet eyes was quietly standing there observing the interaction. On her neck was a fresh red mark that was still shiny from the healing skin. Joey followed my gaze and smiled, motioning for the woman to come closer. Clover, I'd like to introduce you to Stacy, my mate. I watched as Stacy lowered her head to me respectfully. Luna. Her voice was light and sweet. She looked back at me with a shy smile. Stacy is one of our hybrids. She is a wolf and a fairy. I'm sure you've noticed the Nova Pack is a bit of everything, Nadine said in a hurried voice. Anyways, we need to send out another set of scouts. We need them to go farther to give us more warning time. I don't mean to throw you in the deep end to see if you will swim, but we don't have time for anything else. I guess a proper conversation with Stacy will have to come later. Nadine, you know the pack. I trust you to appoint the correct people for the tasks. I paused for a moment, pursing my lips together. As an officer, can you... It is only an officer by name. We were never the true leaders of this pack. I was just his next in charge, but he wasn't the alpha, nor I his beta. Not in that sense. It was just fake titles to make it easier. So no, I can't feel if... Nadine trailed off and I glanced towards the medical building. I needed to focus, but looking at the building did remind me that Connor was still there, and so was Gia. We needed to make them aware of what was going on. Logan, go inform Connor and Gia of what is going on. He nodded his head and sprinted to the building. I then turned to look at Dimitri and Nadine. I think it will be best to have every rest normally until we have concrete evidence there is a problem. Doug was guessing, but his hunch couldn't be overlooked. There are too many lives that are at risk. The spy is gone. Probably going to call off the attack now. Stilt said, suddenly appearing between all of us. His clothes were shredded, and I could smell the fresh irony blood scent coming from him. What do you mean? What happened to you? I asked and watched as he glanced in the distance. Your spy is gone. She knows her cover is blown, so she won't be back. She? Did she do this to you? I already knew Stilts was powerful, so to see these wounds on him, this wasn't done by an Omega. Who? Nadine growled. Stilts laughed and looked at the tiger. Darcia. That Omega couldn't, Nadine began to say, but Stilts began to laugh loudly. She really had you fooled. It was only her wolf that was weak. Do you know what she is? I watched as Nadine nodded her head. Yes, she is part witch. Hi! Stilts sneered. That wasn't no witch. You let evil in through the front door. You embraced it and kept it near, when the whole time it had one purpose: Clover. He looked at me and then back to Nadine. That was a demoness, a high-ranking demoness. You should have told us, Dimitri started, but Stilts chuckled, shaking his head. She would have killed you all. The little lady isn't ready for her yet, but she will be. That is what we will work on now. How do you know she won't come back with an army? I asked, and Stilts paused thoughtfully. I guess we don't. He smirked at me and waved his cane to the open field. We had better get to work. I pressed my lips together and couldn't stop the feeling in the pit of my stomach. You have to get control over them so you know what they can do. It is the best way to prevent further accidents. Stilts said, practically reading my mind. I understand that, but... I sighed and looked back at where they had taken Doug. If the moment wasn't quite as urgent, I needed to see him first. I wish Sion was here. He would be able to see his soul and could explain to him that it was an accident. Maybe Doug's soul could see me? If so, it was even more important for me to go and apologize to his body. I didn't want him to become a vengeful spirit. As Sion's mate, I should also be able to see souls, but I think this will only happen after I die. Until then, I need Sion near me to see them. Yes, I needed to see Doug first. It was the only way I could at least push this back for now so that I could concentrate on fighting, though I wouldn't be able to simply forget. I had a feeling this was going to be another scar I carried on my heart. I have to show my respects to Doug first and tell him how sorry I am. In case his soul is around, I want him to know I didn't mean... I stopped not being able to finish the sentence. Then let's go to him, Dimitri said in a soft, gentle tone. I turned my head to see his sad, gentle eyes looking at me. Doug would never hold a grudge against you for this. He couldn't wait for the day when you would come here. Nadine stopped talking abruptly, and her face paled, her lips parted as her eyes glazed over. Impossible. Note, next update will be by the 20th. I looked at Nadine anxiously, waiting for her to speak. Her brows were knitted together for a few moments before the creases faded away. The glaze from her eyes disappeared and she let out the breath she was holding. What is it? I asked and watched as her eyes flashed down to me. You need to come with me, she said softly as Kai scoffed. He shook his head and moved in next to me. No offense, but I don't trust anyone here. This pack is whack. Kai snorted as Nadine growled at him. Don't forget who came to her aid when she was fighting earlier. You know, when you were nowhere to be seen. Nadine's voice was lethal and icy, but she slowly inhaled and nodded her head. Although I understand how you feel, the gauntlet probably seems weird to you, but it isn't intended to be malicious. It is to prove the strongest is leading the pack. Yeah, we don't have to do that sort of crap, since a proper alpha is always the strongest, Kai retorted hastily. Feel fortunate that you have never lost your alpha without having their heir old enough to take their place. With her words, he instantly pursed his lips together. Your gauntlet is just a nice way to say challenge for the alpha title, not to check who is the strongest, but for the one who wants to be the leader. I cleared my throat and patted Kai's back. I think this is all going off topic. Nadine has not given us a reason not to trust her, and she isn't saying you can't come with me. I glanced at her, and she nodded her head with a small smile on her lips. Don't worry. I am ready to shred anyone at a moment's notice. Clover's safety is of the utmost importance. I'd gut Dimitri here in a second if I thought he was trying to hurt Clover. No offense. Odell glanced at the centaur, who simply shrugged. None taken. I think that is normal, Odell. How about you, Kai? Would you attack Connor to protect Clover? Kai chuckled and looked at me with a small smile. I would even fight against Scion to protect you. Not that I would have to, and it would be a death sentence. He ran his hand through his hair as a sheepish grin spread across his face. But would you protect Scion if she attacked him? Because I would still be on her side, Odell said, with a crooked smile. I watched as Kai's brows furrowed together. Kai is my officer now, but he was first Scion's. He has been with Scion longer, so naturally he would be more protective over him. I honestly didn't think it was a fair thing to say. Kai, you don't have to, I began to say, but he answered, I would too. He smiled at me as I looked at him in shock. From the moment I met you, I felt a responsibility towards you. I was separate from my wolf for so long, and I have him back now because of you. In a way, it was like a type of rebirth for me. And when that happened, my loyalties have shifted to you. I think I was always meant to be your officer. I didn't know what to say. I was honestly really touched to hear his words. I mean, I never had that before. Not that I would ever want him to fight against Scion, even on my behalf. Still, it was nice to hear. I have heard that some wolves have a natural connection to others. Some have thought it was because their wolves knew the other in a past life. Most believe there is another type of connection, just like the mate bond. There is the chosen mate bond and the multiple different fated mate bonds. Then there is the officer's bond. There are the chosen officers, but then there is the other level. Some believe some officers are fated to their alpha. This is why a lot of officers come from former officers. The bond carries down. The word officer isn't heard in our minds. Our wolves don't say officer like they do mate, which would be sort of funny if they did. It was more like a feeling, or the need to protect, while the other has the feeling of safety and is naturally comfortable around them. And just as the alpha is strong because he has to lead the pack, the officers are strong so they can protect their alpha. I always felt comfortable with Kai. Maybe this is why. Even his wolf, Aces, was open and comfortable with me. When I first met Dimitri, I was comfortable with him as well. I felt the burning in my nose as I blinked away the tears. I know this may seem silly, but it was like I wasn't seeing it before. I finally realized that even without Scion, I would never be alone. For someone like me, this was like a poor person being told they won the lottery. I won the emotional lottery, and finally I could feel the connections inside of me. Copyright 2022, all rights reserved. JM Snap, O for mate's sake. I composed myself nicely. I didn't need to get all emotional right now, not when I already had so many things weighing on me. I cleared my throat and looked at Nadine. Lead me to what you want to show me. I watched as she smiled. There is no need for that now. She looked up and I followed her gaze. I saw Logan running our way. Behind him were Gia and Connor. Gia looked all healed up, which was a relief. Then another small group followed behind them, and leading them was Doug. My eyes widened in shock as Logan rushed towards me. He's alive! He pointed behind him as he caught his breath. The lucky bastard lives. My eyes were on Doug's. What was he thinking? How was he alive? He was dead, wasn't he? His eyes were fixated on me as he got closer. I took in a shallow breath as he approached. I pursed my lips together and braced myself for however this was going to unfold. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, I said quietly. Hey. Doug's voice was soft and gentle. He gave me a small, sad smile, but I could see there was pain behind his eyes. I know it was an accident. Honestly, I am lucky to be alive. How are you alive? Dimitri asked, and Doug's amber eyes began to water. I felt my chest constricting as he took in a staggering breath to talk. I listened as he swallowed. He was in a lot of emotional pain. My wolf gave his life for me. He unlinked himself from me, allowing the vampire side to take full control. I gasped, cupping my hand around my mouth. I killed his wolf. My chest squeezed together in pulses as I felt my whole body tense. I am so sorry, Doug. His eyes softened as he looked at me. Clover, this was an accident. I'll miss my wolf, but you know what he told me before he left me? He told me to protect our badass Luna. Your power is what this pack needs, Clover. We will follow you, our true leader. Doug said, making a declaration on behalf of the Nova pack. The wolves behind him nodded their heads as well. Good he is alive. Yay. His wolf died. How sad. The pack wants their Luna. Woohoo. Oh, but wait. The Luna hasn't mastered her powers yet. Stilts jabbed at me with his cane. Let's see if you can get your energy under control, eh? Come on, Stilts. Give her some breathing room, Dimitri growled, and Stilts' eyes twinkled up at me. His lips curled up like the Grinch, and I knew this meant none good. I guess you can wait. I'm sure Scion can hold out a bit longer. Is Scion in trouble? I couldn't take any more. I felt my energy surging inside of me, threatening to destroy the world if it could. Is he? You tell me? Can't you feel him? Stilts said in his snarky little voice. Little asshole. I could feel Scion, but his power was fluctuating in massive waves. Was this part of training, or was he really fighting? It felt like the surging was ongoing. He was exhausting himself. He was working hard. I had to too. I wanted to be ready with him. I was ready to fight too. I started walking, without a word, up to the training ground. Well, let's do this. I was keeping an eye on Scion's energy. It felt stronger near the field, as if he was right here. Of course he was. Just in another realm. Who is my opponent this time? I asked, as Stilts appeared in front of me suddenly. Okay, he couldn't run that fast, so he was able to teleport when he faded in and out. Me, he said with a half smile on his lips. I shook my head. I didn't want to be responsible for killing anyone else or any part of them. He began to laugh as his eyes gleamed at me. Oh, you afraid you might kill me? You'd miss me that much, huh? He cackled. Okay, I was feeling like it would bother me less and less. You aren't there yet. Besides, I have a layer of protection from the goddess. I think it is cute you think you can, though. Hey, getting your mind right is half the battle. Good job. He said in the most patronizing voice ever. Yep, the feeling had faded. Let's see what you can do. His voice was full of arrogance as he held his cane in front of him. His posture was very relaxed, and he almost looked bored, which only further aggravated me. Well, are you going to just stand there? If so, let me know so I can break out the tea. Give him hell, Clover, I heard Gia yell from behind me. Yeah, I need to wipe that look off his face. I heard a sound in the distance, and my eyes traveled to it. There he was, the Minotaur from before. It was like the mental wall that was up before was no longer there. Easily I sifted my voice into his mind, but it wasn't just my voice. I felt a part of him inside of me as I spoke to him. For a moment, the Minotaur froze, then one foot, then the other, and at a full sprint he charged towards Stilts. It was as if Stilts was anticipating this, and he effortlessly blinked out of view, letting the beast run by. When he reappeared, though, I was also ready. I felt the black energy swirling inside of me and the familiar tingle of the electric pulses as well. It felt like an extension of my body as I hurled it towards him. It was both exhilarating and shocking. I had never had this type of power before. A deadly combination spiraled towards him, and I watched as he swiftly raised his cane. The lightning snapped at his stick, and for the first time I saw him begin to strain himself. With a grunt, he pushed his cane back, sending out an invisible pulse. He was focused and occupied, and this was my real plan. While he was busy, mentally I pushed my presence into his mind. The air was just starting to clear when I saw his eyes widen. A small smirk reached my lips as I inhaled a satisfying breath. Drop. Your cane. I gripped onto the struggling force that tried to regain control. His hand began to tremble, and then I watched as the cane left his hands. It wobbled to a stop on the ground, and I released my control. I felt my knees begin to buckle as something trickled from my nose. The lesson's over for today, Stilts growled as he hurried up to me. You shouldn't have been able to. Too much. He muttered as he looked up at me. He held a handkerchief up to me with his lips pursed. Wipe your nose? How are you feeling? I looked at him a bit confused as I took the fabric from him. I blotted at my nose, and it left red globs on the white material. I glanced back at him as his eyes studied me. You broke through Shiva's glass. You broke the Nembrant glass inside of me. Clover, that is remarkable. Stilts' words shocked me since I could see the sincerity in his eyes. How do you feel? My legs were a bit shaky, but they are already feeling better. I reached up to wipe my nose again, but the blood had already stopped. Clover, I heard Dimitri's voice as a group rushed up behind me. Let me see? Kai said, tilting my chin and cautiously examining my face. I'm fine. Hell yeah, she is fine. She kicked your ass. Odell snorted and Gia giggled. She did, Stilts admitted calmly. She has accomplished something incredibly rare. She destroyed an implanted Nembrant glass. I watched as he frowned and then looked at the others. They will be desperate to capture her. Right now, there isn't a fix or cure for Nembrant glass, which means Clover is invaluable to us all. Dimitri's words were shaky as his eyes looked at me with fear. We need to hide you. No, I need to help who I can. I need to save the Chance Pack. As the words escaped my lips, the ground began to tremble. I felt the vibrations, and through them I could hear a distorted roar. Sion. Note, next update will be the 23rd. Sion. The sandworms were like a hive. They kept coming out of nowhere. These repulsive creatures were relentless as they continued their onslaught against me. And where exactly was I? It wasn't the in-between realm, since I should be able to see both sides, right? Instead, I was seeing sand and worms. What was it that Riapus said? I would need to use my power to make them submit to me. Well, at this point, I was in eradication mode, and they were still coming after me. He did mention that I would be in the in-between after the worms learned I was their master. So what was the connection? I sent out another dark wave, slicing a worm in half. The bellows across the sandy field echoed, and I felt the moving ground. More were on their way. How was I supposed to get them to see me as their master? I have already proven that I am stronger. This was my test. Of course, this wasn't something simple. It was more than just strength. I stared out as the sand swam around me, pelleting against my skin. I was beginning to hate sand. I used to think I would love living near the beach, but screw sand. I was wearing a layer of it right now, and I would take dirt any day. The ground erupted from behind me, and more sand engulfed me. This was endless. I needed to strategize a new plan, since just killing them wasn't working. If the worms were like a hive, then maybe killing them was only fueling them into attack mode. What was I supposed to do then? One of the worms began to eat the pieces of the mutilated parts, and then another joined in. I watched as their bodies began to get bigger as they ingested parts of another worm. What if they were not a clue of worms? What if it was a bunch of segments that combined equaled one worm? If that's the case, killing each segment wasn't going to win it over. It would be looking at me as if I was the enemy. I dodged out of the way as one of the bodies dove towards me. It smashed into the sand, disappearing beneath it. Beneath my feet I could feel movement, but it moved farther down or away until I couldn't feel it anymore. I felt the pink ribbons inside of me fluctuating and could sense Clover's presence. Wherever I was in an area that was close enough that I could feel her. It was like another plane. Another world that existed much like the other realms, only the barrier between the worlds was thinner. I even caught the faint smell of her scent. She was so close and yet very far away. I needed to get back to her. I wasn't sure what was going on, but I needed to be by her side. I had to trust my instincts that told me there was something off in the Nova Pack. I might have my trusted officers there, but no one would protect her like I would. Suddenly, a worm erupted from the ground. It had been quiet. I felt nothing. Yet its body hurled towards me with its disgusting mouth open. I lifted my hand in its direction. Its face met with my hand as a black wave held it in place. Sparks of black lightning rippled from my hand as wisps of smoke sprang up around it. I pushed out a wave of pulsing energy which sent the worm hurling back to the ground. Screeching wails echoed around me as the ground shook angrily. Loud swishing sounds sent sand flying in the air as worms popped up all around me. At this rate, I was going to end up killing every segment. I had a feeling if I did that, though, I wouldn't be able to move forward from this plane. I was here for a reason. There was something I was supposed to discover about myself, or I'd like to think there was a purpose here. I didn't end up here before when I traveled from the spirit realm, which meant Riapus planned for me to end up here. Unless this didn't have anything at all to do with a show of power. What if it was something else? I stared at the worms. It didn't look like they had eyes, but maybe they saw a different way. Maybe they could make out shapes through vibrations and could sense the waves of energy. Could it really be so simple? I took in a slow breath and focused. I felt my body begin to change as I pushed for the form of Anubis. Gods were often petty. I chose not to shift into the Anubis form. What if the worm would only acknowledge me in that form? It sounded stupid, which was making me think this was exactly right. Gods were petty beings with too much time on their hands. This time the shift was much easier. Just like when you first learn to shift the next time, it is easier. I stared at my clawed fingers and the short black layer of fur that layered my body. I straightened up, now noticeably taller, as I looked out at the segmented worms and waited. Slowly the worms began to move together. Each worm began to meld with the next as it grew in size. It grew in stature until it was as tall as a large building. The shadow from the worm overlapped me as it raised its body. It arched over me as if it was trying to discern who I was. I waited, ready to defend myself against the monstrous beast in front of me. It lowered its head to me, and I thought that it was going to try to eat me. I felt it exhale a breath that smelled like musty, wet dirt. I waited for it to strike, but it didn't. Instead, its head began to lower until it was bowing to me. I was right. I shook my head in agitation. This was all about me shifting into Anubis. I looked around, half expecting the plane to dissolve, but it didn't. Okay, the worm submitted to me. Now what? In the breeze, a scent hit my nose, one that had me gripping my fists together angrily. Clover's blood. She was bleeding. She was hurt. The feral growl ripped out of my throat as I threw my head back angrily. I felt pure rage building up inside of me. I was ready to kill anyone and everyone just to be by her side. The ground began to move under my feet, and the worm dove into the sand. As it did, an opening was made in the sand. Deeper in the hole was a blurry darkness. This was the exit. This is why I wouldn't be able to leave without the worm, because the exit was under the sand. I walked up to the edge and didn't hesitate. I jumped into the abyss, entering a gray area. This was it, the area where I could see but the living and spirit realm. And there I could see Clover. She looked like she was looking for something. As if she could sense me. She probably could. I let out a sigh of relief. She looked fine. I shifted back from Anubis and looked at this in-between area. I could use this to get information against my enemies. I could also use this to pull Clover to safety. It was weird. Before, I felt like I didn't know what to do. I didn't understand the different realms and planes. I didn't feel that way anymore. I could see Clover, and I knew that I could be next to her in a second. It felt easy, as if all I had to do was will it. The colors began to seep into the gray as I kept my focus on Clover. I watched as the world became clear and the air light again. Her eyes focused on mine and no one else existed. I cleared the distance between us in mere seconds, pulling her into my arms. I felt her delicate hands grip around me as I lowered my nose into her neck. I inhaled her scent, not being able to satisfy myself with it. I couldn't stand being away from her. A moment away from her felt like an eternity. Clover, I murmured into her neck. My nose traced over her sweet skin, and I lifted up to inspect her. Are you all right? Her lips curled up as she smiled at me. I'm fine, Sion. I sniffed the air, smelling her blood. I narrowed my eyes at her, ready to kill whoever injured her. Who hurt you? I watched as she shook her head. No one did. I guess technically I hurt myself. She gave me an adorable smile. I raised my hand up to stroke her soft cheek. She was able to break the Nembrant glass, Sion. I turned my head to look at Dimitri. Momentarily, I forgot there were other people around. My focus was all on Clover. She is an incredible asset to us and a dangerous one for the demons, Stilts added, and I understood his meaning. She would be in demand from everyone. Even more reason for me to always be by her side. She was my special mate, and I wasn't feeling very generous about sharing her with anyone, let alone the demons. A low growl reverberated from my chest as I pulled her in flush against my body. I lowered my head to hers, letting my lips brush over her forehead. I welcomed the tingles that erupted from having contact with her. It was as if she recharged me. Only I needed her constantly. She looked like she was doing just fine without me. My sole motivation for fighting was to get back to her. Sion, she whispered into my chest. I missed you. I can't explain exactly what her words did to me. It felt like my heart was going to explode. Did she really feel the same way I did? I felt like my feelings were extreme, and in a second she erased all my doubts, that she missed me just like I missed her. I pulled back from her and tilted her chin up. I gazed into her eyes and couldn't help the smile that reached my lips. My beautiful mate, I love her so much. I couldn't stand it anymore. I needed to taste her lips. I leaned down and gently brushed her soft, plump skin with my own before fully capturing them. I flicked my tongue over her bottom lip and then moved it between her lips. She eagerly opened her mouth to me, and I plunged my tongue in with the invitation. I couldn't stop myself from the neediness of my kisses. I kept stealing her breath as she came up for air. She was clinging to me as if she couldn't bear to be parted from me even an inch, which fueled me more. I wanted to bury myself into her. I wanted to feel her body go wild beneath me. I wanted the rush of delirium only she could bring me. Gods, did she have any idea the fires she ignited within me? I had very little self-restraint. Even though I knew we were in public, I couldn't help the intensity of the kiss. I wanted more. I want a lot more. I didn't think I would be able to stop the raging fire that was starting to burn out of control. I didn't want to stop it either. I wanted to take her somewhere private and reward myself with her body. Nothing was going to stop me from tasting her again. They spotted an army. Yet those words snapped me out of it instantly. I lifted away from her lips to see her wide eyes. There was a possessive, protective rage taking over the lustful flame. If they were coming for her, I'd destroy them all. Note: join Fact3BJJ Snapper Society to see when the next update is. Clover. Doug sent out additional scouts to gather more information. We didn't know much. We didn't know where the army was headed or who it was. Nadine and Odell went out as well. I was sitting at a long table inside a great hall building. Next to me was Sion, as well as our other companion. The whole pack had gathered as we waited for more news about the army that was seen. Sion and I filled in each other on what had happened during the short time we were parted. I told him everything, and the part about killing Doug's wolf. He didn't look shocked or fazed at all. He was attentive to me and asked me how I was doing. He wiped my tears with his kisses and told me how proud of me he was. When I told him about the Omega Darcia, I watched as his eyebrows knitted together. I wasn't sure if it was a coincidence with her being an Omega and Hazel being one. It was probably just a coincidence, but it was something we couldn't ignore either. Cian. I stared into his warm hazel eyes and gave him a small smile. I don't think we should wait any longer. I think we need to reclaim the chance pack as soon as possible. I am afraid that the burden on you will be too great. I want to reclaim the chance pack, but I won't risk losing you. You are not going to lose me, Cian. I began to say, but I could already see it in his eyes. He knew what we had to do too. He was just anxious for me. I know I won't lose you. I will drag you to the other side if I have to in order to keep you safe. I watched as the warm color grew darker as he sat there in thought. We were on the brink of war. One way or another, we would be fighting. There was an army out there that we might have to fight, and then we had to save the chance pack. We didn't want to fight against the chance pack if we could help it. It was a tricky situation, and right now a lot of it would come down to me. I wasn't a master of my skills, but I wouldn't become a master anytime soon. We couldn't wait for that. I had to trust that my instincts would help guide me. All rights reserved. JM snap, oh for mate's sake. I reached over and intertwined my fingers with Cian, feeling the sweet sparks from our touch. There was an energy that swam between us, and when we were touching it was like the circuit completed. The flow was stronger, and our bond grew in those moments. I glanced down the table, looking at our friends. Gia and Connor seemed pretty close. There was a gentleness in his eyes as he looked at her. Her eyes seemed to sparkle up at him as well. There was a connection between them, even if they weren't mates. I glanced back to look at Sion to see his eyes on me. We stared into each other's eyes until the room grew quiet. We both snapped our heads up and looked down the middle aisle of the large hall. Doug walked in, followed by Nadine and Odell. However, right behind them, two other large men came in, radiating with power. One of them I recognized. It was Sam, the beta from the Diamond Pack. "Daddy!" I heard Gia gasp as she jumped up from the table. The one man ran up the center aisle as Gia ran to him. He scooped her into his arms and lifted her off the ground. "My baby girl, I was so worried," I heard him whisper as he sat her back on her feet. "Do you have any idea how worried your mother and I have been?" "Daddy, you don't have to worry like that about me. I'm not a little girl anymore." "You will always be my little girl," the man said as Sam came and patted him on the shoulder. "You've worried my sister to death. I told Susan that you knew how to take care of yourself, though." Sam winked at Gia, who smiled up at him. "What are you doing here, Uncle Sam?" Gia asked. And how did you get here so fast? There is a lot to discuss. I watched as Sam lifted his eyes up to me. This pack has been wrapped in a time paradox. It's been days. But it hasn't felt that long for you guys. He looked over at Doug, who stepped forward as the crowd began to murmur. This is the Alpha King Wyatt's beta, Sam. What he says is the truth. The Omega Darcia was actually a demon living among us. Through her, she slowed time in here after Clover arrived. This would give the enemy time to assemble, while time seemed to hold still in here. When we left to investigate the army, we wandered through a fog. We didn't realize until we ran into Beta Sam and Delta Adam of the Diamond Pack that so much time had passed. Doug then looked at me and Scion. The army seems to be on the move, but they are heading away from us. It is a small army, which probably means... Doug's eyes were on me as Scion finished his sentence. They are grouping together for an all-out assault, Scion said as Doug nodded his head. This makes the most sense. This is why they needed time. Time for all the small armies to gather together, Doug said, and then Sam stepped forward. This is an all-out war for you, Clover. I was given a message from Alpha King Wyatt, and he wants for you to go to Elysium, the fairy kingdom, where you will be safe. I looked at Sam as I felt Scion's fingers tighten with mine. Is it an order? I asked and watched as Sam shook his head no. It is a highly encouraged request and a privilege to be invited to stay in Elysium. I understand that, and I appreciate it. However, there is a job that I must do. I have to save the Chance Pack. They are being controlled, and I won't run away, not when I can help them. I looked at Scion and smiled. If a fight is coming, I will not run from it. If they want me, they'll die trying to take me. The fight isn't against normal werewolves, Scion said with a deep, rich voice. His eyes were fixated on Sam as a wave of authority washed through him. I am no longer bound by the Alpha King and his laws. I am my own king, and Clover is my queen. We will use the powers granted to us to eliminate any threat that we can. Even the Nycrops, Meryl, should fear where I can send her. He rose to his feet, pulling me up to his side. Tell your king that the king of the spirit realm has joined the fight. We fight for ourselves and for our future. I watched as a smile spread across Sam's lips. Because you fight for the future, you have already joined our side. We fight for the same thing, the right to live in peace, the right to live our lives, the right to exist without fear. He paused for a moment as he stared at Scion. There was an unreadable knowledge in his eyes, as if he knew so much more than he was telling. Anubis, he said, and I almost gasped. How did he know this? The Lycan princess and prince will be meeting with you soon. I will head back to the Diamond Pack now and let them know of your predicament. The Fairy Queen is working on a solution to this mind controlling. She will have an answer to this. When she does, they will help everyone. That is the type of person she is. She was the previous Luna of the Diamond Pack, many years ago. All rights reserved. JM snap. Oh, for mate's sake. I had heard of the rumors before about the fairy princess that was mated to the Alpha of the Diamond Pack. The rumors were that was why the Diamond Pack was chosen to have the next Alpha King. I am sure this is why they were given a Lycan Prince, too. Something about the Diamond Pack had always made them powerful, though it was a good thing since they were always helping out the other packs. They formed strong alliances with other species, too, even having the Alpha King's daughter married to the Vampire Prince. They solidified treaties through a blood bond, one of the strongest bonds. It is why even regular humans have sealed treaties with marriage. To create a child with a link to both sides, a powerful, unbreakable connection and a bridge between the two places. I heard that the Alpha King's daughter loved the prince, though I always felt sad thinking of arranged marriages. Everyone deserves the chance for love, but I suppose love can grow. And through those arranged marriages, countless lives are saved. It isn't always ideal, but it can be necessary. Daddy, I'd like to stay with Clover. I heard Gia say as the large man shook his head. No, you are coming home where it is safe. I glanced over to look at Connor. His body looked tense and rigid, as if it was all he could do to manage to stay where he was at. He knew it wasn't his place to speak, and he looked like he had to fight to hold himself down. Could he really have such a connection with Gia? Or was this all in my head? I think this is where I'm supposed to be. Something inside of me is pulling at me to stay with Clover. I watched as she looked at Sam. My fairy blood calls on me to. Gia, I promised your mother. Adam? I watched as Sam rested his hand on his shoulder. Susan will understand this. We have a connection that is different. A part of us is always listening and can feel the Fairy Queen's wishes. This might be something that Queen Lily wants, or it could be something else. He paused as he looked at Gia. In either case, your daughter is a young woman and a valuable asset. Plus, who knows, maybe it is her wolf calling her to go to the chance pack for help. Gia hasn't met her mate yet. Maybe her wolf senses he is there. I watched as Adam's arms trembled slightly. His eyes were watery as he stared at Gia. He pursed his lips and pulled Gia into his arms, holding her against his chest. I know you are a young woman now. I'm just not ready to say goodbye. I am not ready to let go. I feel like you were just born. I remember that day like it was yesterday. Daddy, I'm not leaving you forever. I'm just staying to help. There was a sad, knowing smile on Adam's lips, almost like he knew it wasn't a temporary thing. You grew up so fast. I always thought I would have more time, that I would get to do more with you later. He sighed and nodded his head. You're a beautiful young woman, and I am so proud of you. I'll be back to help, with or without the Diamond Pack Army. I will come back, he said as he stared at Sam. Of course, we will both come back to help out in the fight, no matter what, Sam said with a gentle smile on his face. There was something warm and endearing about Sam. He made me feel calm and comfortable. There was a wisdom to his words that made you feel safe, and he carried himself with so much confidence. I hoped one day I would carry myself half as well. His eyes met with mine, and there was the kind smile again. Despite everything that is going on, it looks like you found where you belong. I smiled and leaned into Sion's side as his arm came around me. I did. I found my person, and I belong wherever he is. The time paradox is broken now. Time should resume normally. Gia, use the fairy messengers to keep us informed. We need to know your movements so we can come to your aid. I watched as he then turned, taking a couple steps before pausing. He didn't say a word, but he stood there waiting as he turned his head slightly to look at Adam. Be careful. I watched as Adam softly kissed his daughter's forehead. Don't worry, I will be. I watched as Adam turned to walk away, and Sam resumed walking on his own. Gia remained there for a couple of moments. She stood there staring at the door where her father and uncle disappeared from. Then Connor was there. I didn't even hear him move, but he was by her side. His arm came around her, and she looked up at him. A smile reached her lips, and her body leaned into his side. Okay, I wasn't imagining it. There was something there. The two walked back to the table together, and the focus reshifted to Doug. Clover, you are our Luna, our leader. Our place is by your side. Your fights are our fights. Your army is ready at your command, Luna. I listened to Doug's words as the whole pack rose to their feet. The sound of chairs screeched against the floor, and then my eyes widened in shock as they all lowered themselves. They placed a fist over their chest as a loud affirmative roar ripped through their chests in unison. All rights reserved. JM Snap, oh for mate's sake. Luna, note, join JM Snap, Snappers Society to see when the next chapter will be released. I didn't know what to say. I stood there quietly, staring at everyone. I felt Sion's warm arm come to rest around my waist, and I looked up at him. His sweet hazel eyes were glowing down at me. It looked like he was so proud. I felt bad that the first thing I would be doing to the Nova Pack was to drag them into a war. Looking over everyone, none of them seemed to have any reservations. It was as if the battle with Doug erased any doubts anyone may have had. I watched as Doug walked up in front of me, and he nodded his head in reverence. It is time we finally have our ceremony binding you and your mate to the pack, Doug said with a small smile on his face. Will the Nova Pack be fine with combining with the Chance Pack? I asked, and watched as his eyes lit up. The pack will follow and merge with you. This is the will of the pack. He lifted his hands up as an affirmative yell was heard from everyone. He then looked over at Sion. Just like when the Alpha title passed over to you, you will both feel the merger of the pack. You understand how intense this can be and may wish to prepare Clover for it. Can't you just say, "Here is the pack"? Odell asked with minor annoyance. I am not asking them to move into a house, They will be taking on the pack itself. There is a leadership bond that must be formed. Uniting them as their leader, we are all part of the roots and they will be the trunk of the tree. So, Doug started to explain, but Odell waved him off. All rights reserved. JM snap. Whatever, she said and shook her head. Give me a couple hours to have everything prepared. Doug nodded to me and then turned and began delegating orders. So, what will this mean for Doug and Nadine? Kai asked as he walked up behind us. They will fall in line with whatever roles given to them. Wes, you both still have openings for deltas, Dimitri said, tilting his head to the side with his brows raised. We will see how things look in the future, Sion said, as I watched his eyes travel to Connor and Gia. They both were still back near the table, lost in each other's gaze. Excuse us for a moment. Dimitri, we will need a quiet space so I can prepare her for the ceremony. I watched as Dimitri nodded his head and then Sion pulled me away. He gently led me towards Connor and Jaya. His eyes were taking in the scene and then he was looking at Connor. As we approached, I noticed Connor stiffened and straightened up. Connor? I watched as Sion stared at his cousin and then he looked over at Gia. We can't have any issues with the Diamond Pack, so this can't be something that will end badly. Never, I don't plan to mislead her. Connor's eyes flashed to Gia and then back to Sion. I watched as Gia stepped into his side, placing a reassuring hand on his arm. He smiled and then looked down at Gia. You feel something between us too, don't you? I watched as Gia's eyes widened. Her body looked tensed as her face began to stain the color red. Then she slowly nodded her head. I don't understand it, though. You aren't my fated mate. But, Gia began, but Connor pulled her closer into his side. There are many different types of mates in this world, Gia. Some fated and some chosen. Some are even bound together through magic and powers, ordained mates. There are also the rare soul mates and true mates, but even then, it isn't limited to that. I watched Sion study Connor and then his lips parted slightly. Are you saying... I don't know yet, but I think she may be my kismet. A what's met? I didn't know what this meant, but Sion seemed very intrigued. He also looked shocked. What exactly was this? What is a kismet? Gia asked, and I was glad I wasn't the only one who didn't know what this was. It is an uncommon mate bond that forms through your compatibility. You can force one into existence. You can't choose it just like a fated mate. It is when a mate bond forms by your souls, recognizing their counterpart in another. A chosen mate is a mate you choose. A kismet mate is a mate your soul chooses. It is a deep connection that once formed is unbreakable, Sion said, and I watched as Gia's face scrunched in confusion. All rights reserved. JM snap, for mate's sake. Isn't that a soulmate bond then? She asked, and Sion shook his head. No. A soulmate bond is extremely rare. Those are bonds of the soul that are already destined. Some even claim they are mates whose souls reincarnated but refuse to only recognize the same soul as their mate. A kismet mate is your soul choosing their mate. It happens over time and it isn't immediate. Sion pulled me closer, and his fingers brushed over my arm gently. How do we know if that's what this is? Gia asked, and I watched as a sweet smile reached Connor's lips. You'll hear it. If a mate bond forms through kismet, we will hear it. My beast will claim it, and so will yours. Lycans have true mates out there, right? I asked, and Connor looked at me, nodding his head. They do, just as those who take chosen mates have fated mates out there. I watched as he looked down at Gia. Says, I would be a fool to deny what I have right in front of me, a kismet mate or not. He stared at Gia with a small smile. When your father came for you, I didn't want you to go. I was desperate. My mind was flipping through every scenario of how I could keep you with me. I don't know why, but I don't care why. I just want to be around you more, and I want to know everything about you. I didn't want to leave you either. I didn't realize it until I saw my uncle and father. I knew they had come for me, and I instantly made the decision not to leave. I don't want to walk away from whatever this is. I have never felt anything like this before, and I am curious about this feeling. I don't know why I am drawn to you, but I am. I just want time to explore whatever this is. I watched as Gia shook her head slightly and smiled. I'm not saying anything concrete. I'm just saying She stopped as if she was searching for the words she wanted to say. You don't want to miss out on something great, Connor said, and I watched as Gia smiled up at him. I think a blind man could see the connection between them. Whatever the reason, it really didn't matter. If you feel that strongly about someone, that should be enough. Well, Gia, Connor is strong and confident, though I think he will be the overly protective type, I said, reminding her of our conversation from in the cave. Those were qualities she wanted in a mate. Honestly, I think her and Connor were a good fit. As a bonus, that would mean I would get to see Gia all the time. She would join with Connor since he was Scion's beta. This could be a really good thing to help with relations with the Diamond Pack. I understand Scion's concerns before. They didn't need anything else causing a rift with the Lycan princess. How long does it take for a kismet mate bond to form? And how do you guys know about this? I asked as Scion chuckled. This is ancient knowledge that most werewolves have lost over time. Lycans pride themselves in their knowledge, and it has been passed down to us from each generation. Drilled into us, you mean? Connor added as Scion nodded his head with a laugh. We may have lost our Lycan form for a while, but the pride remained. This knowledge is part of our heritage. It was what everyone clung to. Scion's hand brushed up my side, and his fingers brushed over my cheek. If it is a kismet bond, it will depend on the bond. It can be anywhere from hours, days, weeks, or even months. Those bonds form differently. If a bond is there, then it is there. I watched as Connor looked at Gia again as he searched her eyes. This doesn't depend on that. All I want right now is to be near Gia. I just want to be near you too, Gia admitted with surprising boldness. Just make sure you don't cause any unnecessary wedges for us with the Diamond Pack. Scion said with a wink as his hand put pressure on my side. I need to prepare Clover for the ceremony. Link me if there is anything of vital importance if you aren't too busy. I watched as a sly grin reached Scion's lips as he guided me away. I think those two would be good together, I said and watched as Scion nodded his head slowly. That's up to them to decide. Is there a lot of mental strain for the ceremony? What was it like when you became the alpha? I watched as his lips curled down as his eyebrows knitted together. I had been preparing for it for years. It is almost like your mind feels fuller. You can feel everyone's connection inside of you. You will be able to mind link with anyone as long as they are within range. A part of their connection is felt inside of you, but it isn't like you are constantly aware of it. Usually you only know someone is missing when you try to reach out to them and can't. At first, however, it can feel overwhelming. There is a lot of pressure that you have to breathe through and accept. He looked ahead at Dimitri, who walked over to us. 3 houses down from here is a vacant house. You can take Clover there where it will be quiet. It will still be a couple hours until all the preparations are ready. Dimitri looked at me and smiled. This is a special event, and the pack wants it to be done right. Thank you, Dimitri. We are not to be disturbed. This is vital to make sure she is ready. I watched as Dimitri nodded his head. Understood. We will let you know when we are ready. Scion guided me out the door, and we were greeted with the cool night air. The air was fresh and welcomed into my lungs. The grass was slightly damp from dew as it brushed against my feet. We walked past a couple houses, and then we arrived at the 3rd house. It was a gray house with white shutters. There was a white porch that covered the front of the 2-story house. Is this it? I asked, and Scion nodded his head. Yes, you can tell from the scent no one lives here. It is just a guest home. We walked up the stairs and entered into the house. There was a wooden hallway that stretched in front of us. Off to the side were brown carpeted stairs with a white railing that led to the 2nd floor. To the other side looked to be a living room. It had a light tan leather couch and a flat-screen television over a fireplace mantel. The place looked quite cozy and had a comfortable atmosphere. Scion interlaced his fingers with mine and then pulled me up the stairs. All rights reserved. JM Snap. I looked around curiously as I took in the layout of the home. On the 2nd floor, there were 3 white doors and another long hallway. He led me down this hallway, and I looked up at him curiously. Did he even have any idea where we were going? We have never been in this house before, or was he just checking the house out to make sure it was empty? Finally, at the end of this hall, there was another door. He opened the door, pulling me in behind him. It was a large bedroom with a king-size canopy bed with beige curtains. There were 2 large windows against the wall that streamed moonlight into the dark room. Another door was opened slightly, and I could make out that it was a bathroom. "I'm going to prepare in here?" I asked and looked up at the hungry eyes looking down at me. I felt my body shudder in response to his lustful eyes as he stepped into me. "Yes, I'm going to completely prepare your body." His head dropped down to mine and I felt his hot breath searing my lips. "I think it is best to start with the Alpha and Luna becoming one for the pack." I breathed in his sweet breath as I felt my heart racing in response. "We have both fully merged with ourselves as individuals. Now we need to do it as a mated couple. Clover?" I felt his fingers trembling as they climbed up my sides. "Is it okay if I don't hold back?" I smiled and let my tongue trace the bottom of his lip. "Only if it's okay if I don't hold back." With a growl, his lips smashed against mine and pure fire ignited between us. Note: for the next update information, join my group, JM Snappers Society. I smiled and looked up at Sion happily. His eyes were on me, and I could see the love that was radiating in his eyes. I leaned in his side as he cradled me against his body. Suddenly his arm became tense and his body rigid. The smile on his lips quickly faded as I saw his serious face. His brows were pinched together and a scowl rested on his lips. A strong breeze ripped through the air, and with it a familiar scent. I felt my body tense as a low growl escaped through Sion's curled-up lips. Silence blanketed the pack as they all watched us. They were on alert to see their new alpha acting aggressively. Noses were in the air as they tried to find the threat. Joey ran up to me with wide, wild eyes. "You smell it? Why is she here?" I shook my head, but there was no denying Taylor's scent, but she wasn't alone. I got a whiff of Hazel's scent, too. They were traveling together and were not far from us. Why were they coming this way, unless... could they have been working with Darcia? I asked as I tried to think. Darcia was a half-demon living in this pack. She was here as an Omega, but that was just her cover. Hazel was working with Taylor, and she was an Omega in the Sulfur pack. Honestly, it was the perfect cover for them. No one would give an Omega a second glance. Omegas are weak and are not a threat. You are at times invisible as an Omega, which would mean you could get away with a lot. You were unnoticed. Hazel could have left the pack every night, and no one would have known. This would be a great way to relay information. The thing is that usually even Omegas were loyal to their leaders. Was there more to it? Or was their ranking just a coincidence? I was digging up more questions than answers. If I wanted to know the truth, we needed to ask the source. "Darcia is a demon, right?" Connor finally said, with his arm gently resting behind Gia's back. He looked up at Sion, and I watched his brows knit together. "Do we know what kind of demon? Where is that little paramecium that has been hanging about us?" He glanced around, and I did as well. I didn't see Stilts, but that didn't mean he wasn't around. "What are you thinking, Connor?" Kai asked. "I'm just saying, could this demon be our fire demon? Is it possible for a half-demon to be that strong?" Sion and I looked at each other with wide eyes. Could Darcia be the one behind killing the innocent girl? Not just her, though. Sion's parents and some pack members, Kai's mate. They were all killed by a fire demon. If there was a chance that Darcia was the same fire demon, then she was incredibly strong. However, we were getting ahead of ourselves. We didn't even know if she was a fire demon. I looked around trying to find Stilts, but he still hadn't shown himself. Maybe he went to investigate. "What do you want to do?" Logan asked. Sion and I were staring at each other. He was studying my face as he mulled over his thoughts. "We have to find out what they are doing out here," I said as Sion pursed his lips together. "It could be a trap. They have been preparing, and maybe they are trying to lure you to them." He started to say, but I quickly cut him off. He wasn't about to tell me to stay here where it was safe if that was his angle. "I am not going to sit here while—" I started to say when Sion began to chuckle. He pulled me against his chest and his lips pressed on my head. "My Luna?" He pulled away from me with a sweet smile on his face. "I was suggesting, instead of risking our pack, that you and I go. We will investigate this situation together. We will travel in the in-between." He bent his head down so that his nose brushed over my forehead. I mean, I would love for you to stay here, where I know you are safe, but there is no way you'd wait quietly for me here if I asked, right? I smiled and tilted my head up to him. How about you wait quietly here while I check it out? I flashed him a bright smile as his chest rumbled with a nod. We are stronger together. Honestly, I would also feel anxious leaving you behind. What if that is the intention, and because of that we should order the pack to be prepared for battle? I nodded my head to Scion, and he tenderly kissed my forehead. He hugged me against his chest, and I could feel the tension in his arms. All he wanted was for me to be safe, but at the same time he wasn't going to fight about it. Not that he could force the issue anyways, but I appreciated this attitude. He was right, we were stronger together. I don't like you two going alone. Dmitri pursed his lips together and I smiled at him. We will be in the in-between, so we shouldn't be detected by most. It is better than risking the whole pack. We need to know what is going on. We need answers. Have the pack ready for battle, just in case. I watched as he nodded his head, but could still see the anxiousness in his eyes. How long until we should come after you? Connor asked, looking at Scion, who shook his head. If we don't return, you are not to come for us. You are to prepare the pack and stay here. Be ready for war, but do not move from here. Contact the Diamond Pack for help. Scion looked at me, and I nodded my head in agreement. If we don't return, they should go to the Diamond Pack for help. They were the royal pack, and the Lycan princess would be their best hope. Luna? Alpha, Doug said, and I watched as he glanced around, and I nodded my head in understanding. He was right. We should address the pack and ease their concerns. I was still a bit unfamiliar with this sort of thing. I looked up to Scion, who smiled, nodding his head. It was so nice having someone who understood you like that. With just a look, he knew what I wanted. I love him so much. I don't know what I would ever do without him. Nova Pack. Your Luna and I will be going to investigate a possible threat to the pack. We want everyone to remain here and on high alert. We shouldn't be long, and we leave our officers and the former officers in charge. This is just a precaution, but the pack's safety is our #1 concern. Parents, you can take your children to bed and rest soundly, knowing the pack is being protected. Everyone else, you are to take your battle roles. Direct your needs and concerns to any of the officers. We shouldn't be long. The pack began to move after that, each going to their posts or positions for defense. I was happy to see that this was a routine they practiced. It was important when there was an emergency that everyone knew what to do, and luckily they did. Ready, my love? Scion asked. I looked at our officers and gave them an encouraging smile. I better not come back to find any of you slacking. I teased to lighten up the mood. Scion pulled me into his chest, and the air suddenly shifted. It became a bit colder, and the colors began to fade. I could see everyone, but they were not as bright and warm-colored as before. I watched as they looked around. They are gone, Joey said with his mate at his side. I still hadn't gotten a chance to talk to her, but as long as she made him happy, that was all I cared about. They should be fine. I can't even sense them, Odell said, trying to reassure Kai, or maybe she was saying it out loud for herself. It is this way, Scion said, redirecting my attention to him. I looked up at him as he lifted his nose in the air. You can smell them? Oddly enough, I couldn't anymore. Yes, but I have already died once, remember? I think that connects me more with this realm. Scion laced his fingers with mine, and then we began to walk. I glanced back once to see our officers were no longer standing there and had also taken on tasks of their own. I'm glad the pack seems to have been run well, I said, and watched Scion nod his head. Yes, me too. We walked in silence. Scion would periodically test the air with his nose as we headed further away. The pack was well out of sight, and we were somewhere deep in the woods. Scion stopped and turned to me. He wrapped his arms around me and held me flush against his chest. I love you, Clover. I love you too, Scion. I inhaled his heady scent and let the tingles embrace me. It goes against every fiber of my being to lead you towards potential danger. I listened to his quiet voice and smiled in his chest. Same goes for me. He leaned his head down and buried his nose in my hair, taking gentle whiffs of my scent. We will get the information we need and then get out. We don't need to overstay. I don't want to risk anything. Scion's breath tickled my head as I nodded. I agree. I lifted my head up to look at him. Everything will be fine, Scion. The two of us together are strong. In the worst-case scenario, we can fight. Worst-case scenario is what I am afraid of, because even the strong can be killed and captured. The Alpha King isn't in his own pack right now. He is strong but knows there are still dangers. The same goes for us. We might be strong, but that also puts a target on our backs. He sighed, and his hazel eyes gazed into mine. You are everything to me. Without you, there is no point in this life or any life. If I die, I'll just meet you in the spirit realm early. I teased and smiled up at him. Sion, I have a life worth fighting for. I have a future I want, a future family with the love of my life beside me. His lips covered mine feverishly. His hot tongue plunged in my mouth as his hands held my face captive. Pure passion and love. This is what he gave me. Always. I can't believe in the beginning I was afraid to get close to him. He was the answer to every prayer I ever had. It was hard to believe that I was given someone who became my happiness. I live for him. I breathe for him. My Scion. He pulled away and kissed the tip of my nose, then leaned his nose against mine. Life with you is the greatest reward I could have ever asked for. I cursed the world when I lost my parents. But having you... He stared into my eyes and smiled. You are perfect, Clover. Suddenly, he lifted his head up abruptly. He gazed out in the darkness as I did as well. Was it a spirit, or was it Taylor and Hazel? We were in the in-between, so it could be anything. I just love it when things go according to plan. A voice hissed. I desperately turned my head trying to locate the sound. Then through the darkness, I could see someone coming into view. A woman with long, gray, straggly hair spilled over the dark cape she was wearing. She had dull, lifeless skin with dark orbs for eyes. Shockingly, these orbs were staring right at us. Oh gods, I know where I saw this woman before. She was the woman from my vision, and she could see us. This woman was the Nycrops. Meryl. Note, buckle up and brace yourself for impact. Join JM Snap, Snappers Society for when to expect the next update. It will be pinned in featured posts. Meryl stood there calmly as her soulless eyes were directed at us. Sion held me tight as he defiantly stood in front of her. There was an eerie calm about her, as if this had all been calculated and planned, as if meeting us here was always the plan. But how? Maybe she intended to meet just me? However, it wasn't just me. Her cold, ruthless eyes seemed greedy and ready to swallow us into their dark. Her head tilted slightly as the corner of her lips curled up. I felt an instant chill rush up my back. I knew we were standing in front of pure evil. You do not belong in this world, Sion growled as black wisps of energy emanated from his body. She tilted her head to the other side as she held her position. She seemed to be enjoying herself. There are many creatures that shouldn't exist, but they do. She raised her bony finger to point at me. That one is the perfect example. With that, Sion let around a ferocious roar. The darkness around her eyes seemed to glow as her lips parted in a happy grin. His roar shook the ground and it trembled below us. Or at least I thought it was his roar that did it. The tremors worsened, yet Meryl stood there unwavering. A cruel smile rested over her lips as the ground exploded around her. 2 large worms emerged out of the earth, directing their fury at the Nycrops. Right before they came in contact with her, they froze. I watched as Meryl's bony fingers wiggled about and I heard 2 high-pitched screams from the worms. It was agonizing, knowing they were in pain. A moment later, they combusted into nothing, not even dust remained. The Nycrops let out a raspy chuckle and shook her head. A young Anubis, formidable but not yet pup, Meryl rasped out as she glared at me. Or at least, I think she was looking at me. It was hard to tell with her eyes full of the abyss. I can't believe that you have been kept a secret from me. I mean, I suspected but didn't know. You don't even realize. She sighed, shaking her head. So much preparations and planning, all for nothing. No matter how clever you are or how much you see, it doesn't matter. The board has already been set and the pieces are falling right into place. What was she rambling on about? I had no idea. It seemed like she was gloating, but wasn't it too early for this? She had no idea of the strength of Sion, and I combined. Like hell, she had already won. JM Snap. All rights reserved. It was all a waste of time. No matter, you have finally been found and within my grasp. The woman's dark eyes gleamed at me as her lips curled up in a wicked smile. You, after all, walked into my trap willingly. All you needed was a familiar scent to lure you out. I inhaled sharply and narrowed my eyes at her. She was talking about Taylor and Hazel. Are they working for you? I listened as her raspy voice cackled. Disposable pawns, idiotic wolf packs. They have been periodically replacing omegas with demons for years now. They are barely even wolves once the demon changelings take effect. They are just a vessel, a host for our demons. And with such a weak wolf, arrogant mutts suspect nothing. Of course, there is a problematic pack we haven't been able to infiltrate, but no bother. I've left them with the ultimate little bundle of joy. Her grin widened as she appeared to be thinking about whatever it was. I had to do this since they have the nullifying scales now. A minor bump in the road? Just a minor one. It doesn't matter. What is going to happen will happen, and the moon goddess's champions can't stop the destruction. She really liked to ramble and brag about the future. My thoughts were on Hazel and Taylor. Were they both demons then? Taylor wasn't an Omega. Was she a demon too, or did she hate me so much that she teamed up with Dr. Snide? How did Dr. Snide really fit into all of this? Brianna Snide, I muttered, and Meryl lifted her head up to look at me, as if I snapped her out of the delusional vision in her mind, and she realized she was in reality now. She sneered at me and clicked her tongue. She is a child that was part of my living past. Another abomination that at least tries to atone for her parents' sins. The product of a werewolf and a witch, she has been giving me the energy and essence to help enhance the Nembrant glass. In the end, it wasn't enough. I thought I was going to need, well, you, she said as she stared at me. But it turns out I was able to tap into a greater source. However, you are a dangerous existence to have around, a strange power that needs to be controlled. It is best to keep you at my side. Like hell I'd let you touch my mate. Sion growled as Meryl stared at him blankly. This match is already over, Meryl said with little interest. I am not done with you. Sion's voice was clear and commanding as he held me at his side. You are the living dead. No matter what you are still a decaying corpse. I have been given command over the dead. As such, I can... A black cloud shot at us, and something sharp entered my eye. I winced and felt Sion stagger beside me as the Nycrops cackled loudly. You are right. As Anubis, this meeting would have been different. However, I was able to strike the first blow. This isn't the same Nembrant glass. She gloated as the pain stung my eye. Waves of searing heat sparked through me like lava, a nauseating, burning sensation that almost made me numb. It attacked me and my body responded to the foreign invasion. I reached up to cover my eye and could feel Sion stagger away from me. I could fight this. I saved Stilts from the Nembrant glass in his eye, and I could do the same for Sion. I just had to get rid of the one inside of me first. It was trying to pull me into something cold and dark. An incredible evil was just waiting for me, but I wouldn't give in to it. I pushed out my energy angrily as I tried to disintegrate the shard in my eye. You are incredibly powerful, little Shea. You can struggle all you want, but you can't fight off this Nembrant glass. Not now that it has been infused with the essence of a god. Even a powerful Shea like yourself. I shook my throbbing head as something tried to force its way into my mind. My energy lashed at it, halting it from going any farther, then slowly pushing it back. Interesting, I heard the grotesque creature mutter. Oh well, at least I'll claim one of you. No, Erebus! You foul, disgusting, pathetic excuse of a slug! Get out of the vessel! She screeched angrily. I blinked my eyes to see how Sion was doing. It hurt so bad to even open my eyes, but what I saw hurt more. Sion was on his knees in pain with his hands on his head. He glanced over at me as his one eye flickered red. His shaky hand reached out to me as his bottom lip quivered. I fell down to my knees next to him and grabbed his hand. Keep fighting it, Sion. I can help us. Believe in me and keep fighting. His hand was trembling in mine. I love you, Sion. Just hold on. His eye was flashing back and forth as he stared back at me. Only you. I'll only love you forever. I didn't like this. I could hear the defeat in his voice. Sion, I pleaded as liquid iron poured in my eye. I had to focus for him, though. He needed me right now. His lips shakily kissed my hand, then he ripped it away and held his head. His eye flickered again, and he grunted in agony. He lifted up his head to the sky and roared loudly. I went to reach for him again, but he shot a dark cloud towards me. My love, I'm sorry. He gasped out as if it took every ounce of his strength to speak. "Live and be safe," he muttered with such a sorrowful look in his eyes as something dark began to swallow me up. The last thing I saw was stilts appearing between Meryl and Cyan. A blast of power came out of his cane towards Meryl. My eyes were focused on Cyan, and his eye that now glowed red. Then darkness. I was falling through the worlds. I was fighting off whatever was trying to capture me. This speck inside of me radiated with a foreign poison, but it wasn't going to take me. With Cyan's face ingrained in my mind, I was ready to explode. I screamed in the dark, forcing a wave of energy through me. Ribbons of power spun around me and swirled in the air. Then a strange sensation burst in my eye. It was gone. The maddening pain. The waves of control that tried to swallow me. I had won. I was kneeling on the cold, hard ground, and I was finally able to look around to see where I was. I blinked as I tried to control my breathing. The dark gray world was a dead giveaway that I was in the spirit realm. Cyan had used his energy to send me here trying to protect me. I had to get back to him. Damn, Nit Cyan. How could you send me away from your side? I had to be there to help him. With a shaky leg, I lifted myself to my feet. I needed to help Cyan. And Stilts, how did he get to the in-between? He could die standing against Meryl. "Wait," a familiar woman's voice said. I turned my head to see Shiva and Riapis standing not far from me. Shiva was looking at me with concerned eyes, while Riapis looked beyond livid. "You are in no condition to go back yet," Shiva said as they walked up in front of me. "Sion," I began to say, and Riapis growled angrily. His arms trembled with a deadly rage as he gritted his teeth. "We know. I am not happy about this. I am ready to break these dormant rules. It's not like the demons are playing by them." Riapis scowled as Shiva placed her hand on his arm. "Only this time they are. They learned to not directly interfere, and that is what is happening now. We can't do anything for Sion. We will see about that." His voice spat out bitterly as Shiva shook her head. "You can't. Or everything will be ruined. You have to let him go." I heard Shiva's voice, and I shook my head trying to make sense of it. "What do you mean?" My voice trembled as the breath of air barely came to me. Her pained eyes moved to me, and she frowned. I felt like my world was beginning to crack. I didn't like this look. It meant nothing good. "Sion has been lost. He is under Marcus's control now, the Demon King." "What?" The air wouldn't enter my lungs. There was a large ball in my throat, and I had no spit to swallow. I struggled with fast, narrow breaths as I shook my head. "I can help him. I will help him." It was a statement, but also a question. I looked at Shiva, who turned her face away from me, closing her eyes. "No, this isn't how it was supposed to be. I wouldn't believe it. No, I won't believe it. I am going to bring him back." I stood up defiantly and clenched my fingers together. "Sion is gone. He is lost to us," Shiva said a bit more sternly, and I glared at her boldly. A deity's soul is merged with the glass in Sion's eye. He isn't Sion anymore. He is Erebus. He is Wicker. Not a god, not a demon. A scornful, vengeful soul has taken his body. That is not the man you love, only his body. Sion is lost. He isn't lost to me. I will get him back. He is still inside, and I can get him back. I will risk my life to save him. To hell with this world. Without Sion, it isn't worth it. I'll risk it all." My voice choked out in painful sobs. I will use every ounce of energy in my body to save him. I'll either succeed or die trying. "Are you willing to really pay this price?" Her voice was almost a scoff. "You have a piece of Sion. Will you chance losing it? Will you risk the life of your unborn child on a slim to nothing chance?" Shiva's words made me freeze. I was pregnant? Note: join JM Snap Snappers Society for when to expect the next update. My hands came down to rest over my stomach as I looked down. I was pregnant with Sion's baby. The family we had talked about and wanted was already starting. A small smile spread over my lips, and I looked up at Shiva. I was determined and had an unwavering conviction. I would save Sion and I would have my family. If this is true, then all the more reason for me to bring Sion back. I won't give up on my child's father. How could I ever face my child? I could see Shiva getting ready to interject. "This is my life, my future, my family, and I am not going to give up on it. You are telling me it is impossible, but I am telling you that it is." I looked over at Riapis. "I will bring Sion back. Whoever this Erebus person is, no matter how strong he is, he can't have my mate. I won't let you leave. We can't risk something happening to the future you are carrying. Shiva sighed, but I folded my arms defiantly. You'll have to fight me then. I didn't care she was a deity. Nothing and no one would keep me from my mate. Child, you are no match for me. There is no way I am letting you. Let her go. An unknown voice said in the darkness. A warm yellow glow shined around us as a figure hid in the now blinding light. I don't think he wanted me to see who he was. But what about what Celine said? There is nothing that can be done to change the war that is coming. One of the world's protectors will become their fiercest enemy. There is only a shred of hope. The masculine voice said as his figure pointed to me. The Locke's and Faust's destinies will soon be forever intertwined. The shred of hope will come down to their descendants. This is their fate. This is their burden. If she dies, the future will lose their chance. Shiva looked at me as the faceless man hummed. No, even if she dies, she belongs to Riapus, and so does the soul of her unborn child. Oh, more favors? No offense. Actually, to hell with it. Lots of offense, but Endymion, you and Celine piss me off. You just go around commanding others as if you are our leaders. Riapus, Shiva hissed, and I could see the nervous glance in her eyes back to the other figure. No, seriously, don't forget what Selene did to us. It is her fault we spent so much time apart. No, that would be Shiva's fault for jumping to conclusions, technically. The voice, who I guess was Endymion, said. Endymion was the fairy deity which also made him my deity. The light continued to shine so that I couldn't see his face, but his demeanor looked relaxed. Which wouldn't have happened if she didn't meddle. Everything she does changes the course in someone else's life for herself, for her visions. Hell, look what she did to the damn Locke family. In order to get you back, what she continues to do with the war that is coming. Riapus seemed very irritated, but Endymion's calm voice cut him off instantly. Would you rather she did nothing? Let the demons win and consume this world. Let their sickness spread through all worlds. Give up on this world and turn a blind eye. Is this what you want? Of course not. You are right. She interferes, but for a reason. She does what she does because she can see the bigger picture. A burden you cannot even fathom having. What do, Riapus? You collect and guide what has already ended. She sees a future that is always changing. She is trying to help guide events without disturbing the balance completely. How dare you say her name with such disrespect? Careful, god of death. Be very careful. Endymion's voice was level, crisp, and clear. There was so much authority in his words that I could feel his confidence. I think he was upset with Riapus, but his tone never gave him away. Don't lecture me. You know nothing of my burden either. The pain and sorrow of every soul wanting to go back to their loved ones. You are right. I don't see the future, but don't dismiss my job. Don't dismiss any of the other gods. We all carry our own burdens. Maybe you are the one who should be careful because some may take your attitude as elitism. There was no mistake in Riapus's tone. It was challenging and aggressive. Let's get back to the topic. What about Clover? Is it even possible? If Erebus has claimed him? Shiva said, and I listened as Endymion made a humming sound again. What does that mean? Riapus growled, and honestly, I was with him. I wasn't in the mood to play games. I was ready to get Scion back. You would think being in the black hole all that time would have humbled your SS, but you are still so arrogant, and... The light around Endymion pulsated as I watched a slight smirk reach Riapus's lips. This was what he was going for. He was wanting to make this deity angry. Their issues were not mine, and right now, I only had one concern, and that was getting Scion back. I cleared my throat and felt the attention shift to me. I am still here, and I don't have time to stick around and watch you guys work out your issues. Scion needs me. Stilts could be dying right now. I stopped talking as the deity embodied with light stepped towards me. He reached out to me, and his hand stopped before touching me. The glow surrounding him began to fade until I could see the deity they called Endymion. His blue eyes were kind, and his blonde hair draped over his forehead. May I? He asked as he looked at my abdomen. I slightly nodded my head, unsure what he wanted, but I didn't feel like he meant any ill will towards me. When his hand touched my abdomen, I felt a gentle warmth from his touch. A smile spread across his face that soon became broader. A son. He moved his hand back away from me as I looked down, placing my hands over my stomach. You will have a very strong son. My eyes flipped up to him as the kind smile rested on his face. If you are to have more children, only with Sion. I could see a smile resting on his face. Why do I feel like you are stalling me? His grin widened, and then he looked past me. I turned my head to see a man with fire-red hair, with a young woman with light blonde hair and pale silver eyes. Who were these two people? In order to get to the spirit realm, they had to be more deities, I guess. This is Lycaon, the lichen deity. The woman next to him is Diana, the lichen princess. The Faust family and the Locke family must unite for the future. Endymion said, and I could see how Diana's body grew tense. However, I need to tell you both a story. Visions began to play in my mind as his voice began to speak in it. JM snap. All rights reserved. There were once two identical twin lichens. One of them fell madly in love with the lichen princess and begged to have her as his mate. The other brother fell in love with Eris, a cruel fallen deity. Sean overheard his brother and this woman plotting against the lichen kingdom, and he took matters into his own hands. He would act like he was on their side so that he could stop their plan. However, Shane's jealousy got the better of him, and he locked his brother in a tomb of silver. He then took on the role as Sean, stealing the royal scepter and destroying the lichen kingdom. After he completed his mission, Eris abandoned him. Alone, he went back to free his brother. He explained what had happened, and Sean went mad with grief. He was in so much pain that Shane injected him with an amnesia potion. He then took on the role of Sean and started calling his brother Shane. The fake Sean became an Omega wolf, abused and weak. Eris never did show herself to him again, and the real Sean was not forced to be an Omega, but became a powerful Alpha. Only the moon goddess knew the truth to who the real Shane and Sean were. The real Sean was given a fated mate by Selene and was given a blessed life. That was until Shane, overwhelmed with jealousy, confessed his sins to his brother. Once the story was heard, the real Sean remembered Diana and what had happened. He told his fated mate and children his very sad story. He told them to remember and to pass it down so that the truth would always be known. Sean couldn't forgive his brother for what he had done, so he asked his brother to meet him far away from the Pact territories. In a painful fight, he killed his brother and then himself. He couldn't allow his brother to live, but he couldn't bear killing him. Sean loved his fated mate, but Diana had captured his heart. When he remembered Diana, he felt as if he was cheating on her. He couldn't move on. So that night, both twin brothers died. Clover, Sion is the descendant of the real Sean, a good man who was betrayed by his brother. I watched as his eyes moved to Diana's. Her silver eyes were watered up as she stood there quietly. He didn't betray you, and now it is time to embrace his line. The next generation will need to unite, but this time, the choice is yours. Two queens of their own right will decide the fate of the world. This is your part to play. And this time, you two will make the decision. I looked up at Diana, whose silver eyes were staring straight back at me. I am pregnant with a son now, but my mate, he needs my help. I might not have any more children. A daughter, the lichen princess said, and my brows knitted together. We will only accept this treaty if you have a daughter. She will be the one to join the Diamond Pack, and this will only happen if I have a son. Only if these conditions are met, so I guess that means you better get your mate back. I liked the way she was thinking. We would only unite if I had a daughter, which would only happen if I got Sion back. Do you agree to these terms? If you have a daughter and she has a son, you will betroth them? Endymion asked me with interest. I looked at him cautiously as I tried to think over the terms. I was checking to see if there was a catch there that I was missing. If I have a daughter with my mate, Sion, she will be engaged to the Prince of the Diamond Pack, if they have one. I watched as his lips curled up and his blue eyes looked over at Diana. A vow. I want to hear a vow, Endymion said, and I watched as Diana also eyed him suspiciously. Isn't this something between the two of us? Why do you need the vow? She asked in a calm but icy tone. Power emanated in her words. She held herself upright and stared down the deity as if she were his superior. Wow, now that is a future queen. This agreement is bigger. It means a possible future. It is a glimmer of light in a dreadful dark. Your oath tells me that sentimental mothers don't change their minds later. Endymion stared at her and I watched as she turned to me. This will only happen if I get Scion back. I know there is a war coming, but I can't see that far ahead. However, I know that if I have a daughter, the Diamond Pack would treasure her. If our children being together can help save the world. I started to say as Diana nodded her head, "We owe the future generations this chance." She walked up to me with the red-headed man right behind her. She lifted out her hand and smiled. "A binding agreement." "For the children of tomorrow," I said, clasping her hand with mine. Our hands glowed for a moment until we released them. "I have heard about the Chance Pack and their dilemma. I have sent warriors to the Nova Pack to assist you. If you need more help, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. The Lycan Prince should be returning soon." I watched as she stopped and pursed her lips together. I remembered that she has been separated from her mate. He went to Elysium while she stayed with the Pack. I am sure she was anxious to see him again. "Thank you," I said with a small smile. Right now, there really wasn't anything for anyone to do. It was all up to me, and that was including getting Scion back. "I hope you are reunited with the prince soon. I'm sure it has been difficult being apart." She nodded her head and then looked up at the deity next to her. "We are finished here," she said, and he placed his hand on her shoulder. A second later, they were gone. I took in a slow breath and turned to face Endymion. "I am going after Scion," I said, and I watched as he shook his head. "No, you won't be going after him." His icy blue gaze was locked on me as I narrowed my eyes at him. What game was he playing? Did he ever plan on letting me go? But he needed me to have a daughter. Unless... My eyes widened as I took in a shaky breath. JM snap. All rights reserved. He lied. I am pregnant, but not with a son, but with a daughter. He never planned on letting me go to Scion. It was all a trap to make a deal with the Lycan princess. I squeezed my fingers together as the rage built up inside of me. The ground rumbled below me as my anger reached a new level. Pure fury was ready to erupt, and this demon deity was my target. Note, curious when the next update will be? Join JM Snap Snapper Society on Facebook. Want to know more about this spin-off? Read Dr. Luna, Books 1-4. I felt my lips curl up angrily as raw, burning rage boiled over. I wanted to lash out and cause pain, an emotion so strong that it threatens to consume your entire being. The anger was building up inside of me like rapids in a raging river. I felt like I was being forced to enter a door to a world without Scion. That wasn't going to happen. I wasn't the carpet for these deities to walk on. How dare he lie to me? I just found out I was pregnant, and already my daughter is being promised to another. I did everything right. I may have made some mistakes, but hell, I have paid for them and then some. Why must I live without my mate? Why was it that everything in my life always ended up a mess? Was this some curse because of the sins of my parents? What was it? Why was I being denied my mate? Why would my child have to grow up without their father? I wouldn't allow it. I had enough. I wanted to scream. My blood raced through my veins as wisps of energy swirled around me. I was unraveling. The fury was building like pressure in a volcano, ready to erupt without thought of the consequences. Regardless of their reasonings, this was my life. I might fail, but at least I would try. In the wicked storm that was brewing inside of me, a serene calm suddenly came over me. It allowed me to think rationally. I wasn't a mindless creature of bitter rage, no better than a vengeful spirit. If I went down this path, I was going to lose myself. I couldn't lose my sanity. I needed to keep my wits so that I could succeed. I am better than a mindless monster. The spear of dark anger came close to capturing my heart. I could still feel the fiery tingles pricking my skin as I took in a slow, steadying breath. The pink ribbons inside of me burst out and vanished into the darkness, as if they were seeking to bring the light. The ribbons almost seemed to have a life or conscience of their own. Were they a reflection of my will? The energy is mine, but there was something different about the pink ribbons. "Endymion," Repus growled, and was at my side. I felt his hand rest on my shoulder and squeeze it gently. "Don't think you are immune from feeling another god's wrath. There is a limit, and you have reached it. I'm over this. I'm over all of it. Anubis is mine and Fu. Kick your balance. I'm bringing him back." I glanced up at Repus, shocked but also relieved. I felt like finally I had someone in my corner. My eyes then narrowed on Endymion to see his reaction. His eyes seemed calm and friendly. There was caring in his eyes, as if he was watching his child. A humming chuckle came from his lips as he smiled. Repus, I can appreciate how much you care. However, remember what happens when you interfere with plans. Rogio isn't the only one who has clout with the deity council. Remember what happened to the Kraken? Your fate could be even worse than cursed to the ocean. Is that a threat? Repus's voice dripped with a venomous tone, and I felt his fingers dig into me slightly. I've had enough of this from both of you. Shiva clicked her tongue and rubbed her forehead. This is why Celine usually handles these things. She is a bit more tasteful in her approach. Endymion, you can use your words. I know you were swallowed in darkness with no one to talk to, but communication would be nice. And for the record, I think it is that you can know what is going on while we all can't. I don't. I just do what my love tells me to do. The deity replied. His eyes were still watching me, as if he was assessing me. I know she has the best intentions. I don't have to know. I just listen and help where I can. I think you are a hypocrite, I said with more bite in my tone than I intended. I heard Riapus let out a stifled chuckle next to me as his hand left my shoulder. Endymion raised his eyes and his brows pinched together. Hypocrite? Elaborate. His voice was level and once again had almost no emotions. I couldn't tell what he was thinking. He was very good at hiding how he felt. You are telling me not to go after the man I love. However, I think that if something happened to the woman you love, you wouldn't give a da about the consequences. You would do anything to get her back, wouldn't you? Even at the cost of ruining everything. Even if it destroyed the world, wouldn't you risk it all for her? I already knew the answer, but I wanted to hear him say it. Of course, he would. He was holding me to a different standard. I know I would. To hell with the world's balance. If Shiva needed my help, I'd send all the souls to hell in order to save her. The deity beside me said with no contrition in his tone. His lips were pursed together as he waited for Endymion to answer. Instead, I heard a small sound come from Shiva, and she turned her head away from us. You are such an idiot, she mumbled, not showing us her face, but I could tell she was happy to hear that response. I heard Riapus chuckle as he left my side to take her in his arms. Why would I care about anything else if you weren't by my side? I've been apart from you long enough. I won't do it again. I'm sure Endymion feels the same, don't you? You've been parted from Celine once before. Would you bear living without her again? Never. Endymion's voice cracked slightly, and when I looked at his eyes, I could see the pain. I will never be parted from her again. Exactly what I thought. I wanted to slap some sense into him. Was my love for Sion not good enough for them? Did they place themselves on a higher level? He should understand the reason I was willing to risk the world for Sion. My love didn't have any less value because I wasn't a deity. Then you understand, I said as Endymion looked at me again. You know the pain of being ripped away from someone you love and feeling this growing emptiness inside of your chest. When you think about not being with them again, you don't want to remember at all because the pain is all-consuming. I won't give up on him. You can never make me give up on him. I will save him, and then I'll save the chance pack. For once, I am going to have it all. I will have my pack and my family. I will see Sion hold our child in his arms. I won't accept anything less. Save the consolation prize for someone else. I stood there quietly as Endymion gave me a sad smile. You are looking at me as if I am the bad guy here. Do you really think that we are that cruel? Do you think we would want to separate you from the man you love? We don't get pleasure from your pain. It hurts us. The sorrow in your heart, it hurts me. You are one of my creations. You especially have a big role to play. Your descendants will be one of the keys to having a future. J.M. Snap, all rights reserved. You lied to me. I spat out bitterly. You told me I was pregnant with a son. I didn't lie. You are pregnant with a son. I watched as a calm smile rested on his lips as he waited for me to continue. I will only have children with Sion. I furrowed my brows as I waited for him to speak. I felt my heart beating angrily against my chest, as if it was declaring war on the god. If he expected me to have a child with someone else, it wouldn't happen. I'd cut my uterus out to make sure of it. Is she pregnant with twins? A boy and a girl? I heard Shiva ask, and my eyes widened as I glanced at Endymion. No, she is only carrying a son. He smiled at me as I shook my head, slowly trying to think what this meant. Then, I can go to Scion? I asked. No. His voice was calm and matter-of-fact sounding. Well, I am not asking, I am going to him. I watched as his lips curled up and his warm eyes met with mine. I don't need to ask. Honestly, this is going beyond manipulating things if you hold me against my will. I'm going to go and save Scion. It is too late for that. What do you mean? I felt a lump form in my throat. He wasn't beyond saving. I didn't want to hear anything like that. I could feel Scion. I was connected to him. My lips parted as a massive black cloud formed behind Endymion. I watched the dark mist as my heart raced. I felt him. I smelled him. But how? I stood there frozen as Scion stepped into view. By his side was an agitated Stilts. Gah, get me out of this stale place. It gives me the creeps. I told you to leave me be. Stilts grumbled as he poked his cane at Scion's foot. Scion's eyes were on me, his beautiful hazel eyes. I couldn't move. I could barely breathe. My eyes began to water as the tears began to fall freely, streaming down my face. Clover, I heard his voice, and he ran to me. I took a few staggering steps forward as he wrapped his arms around me. I grasped his body tightly as the sobs escaped from my throat. My Scion. They said a deity had control. They wouldn't let me go to you, Scion. I hiccuped and buried my head in his chest. I felt him rest his cheek on top of my head as his hand ran over my back. It's okay. I'm okay. Scion cooed to me. I'll always make my way back to you, I promise. You sent me away from you. I'm so mad at you, I mumbled in his chest as I felt his lips brush over my head. I was so relieved. I was angry. I was all the emotions right now. I still couldn't believe that everything was okay. It was right. I had been inwardly preparing to go to war to save Scion, and here I never had to. What the hell was that about? Not that I am complaining, but this wasn't what was supposed to happen, right? I heard Riopis' voice as I sniffled quietly. Wasn't he supposed to wreak havoc on the world? JM snap. All rights reserved. I never said he was lost forever. Endymion's voice had a light tone in it. Now he was showing emotions. I moved my head slightly so that I could look at the deity. This will be a problem in the future. Erebus will take control of another, but he couldn't with Scion. Erebus fled as soon as he realized that Scion's soul was protected. A certain Shea has laid claim to his soul already. Those Shea creatures are more closely related to demons than fairies. Stilts snorted as I continued to cling to Scion. My insides were a mess from the extreme ups and downs. I didn't care about anything. I just wanted to hold Scion and never let him go. I felt him. His thoughts were erratic and irrational. It was brief, but it was a horrible experience. He couldn't completely take a hold of me, though, and the moment he realized it, his presence left me. Then pink energy from Clover crashed into me, destroying the glass. This was the moment Meryl fled, which was a good thing for her. Scion's voice soothed my soul. His tone vibrated against my body, and I breathed in his scent. What the feck, Endymion? Couldn't you have said Scion was fine from the beginning? You had me thinking he was the one everyone was going to have to fight. Shiva roared, sounding extremely pissed. I heard Riopis chuckle, and a smirk raised over Endymion's face. You are right. I have been in a black hole of darkness for so long. I guess I needed some entertainment. My main purpose here was the arrangement with the Shea and the Lycan princess. Now that it has been completed, I'll be on my way. Endymion said, and I felt Scion's body grow rigged. What deal with the Lycan princess? Note in my Fact 3BM group JM Snap, Snappers Society for when to expect the next update. I heard Scion's icy tone, and I bit my lip. I had a lot to tell him. 1, I was pregnant. 2, I promised if we ever had a daughter, she would be betrothed to the Prince of the Diamond Pack. I shouldn't have made such an agreement without talking to him. In my defense, I didn't know I would be able to talk to him. Which hit me. This was Endymion's plan. This was the reason he didn't tell me instantly that Scion was fine. With the Lycan Prince gone and Scion, he only had to get the Lycan Princess and me to agree. I was played. Not that I wouldn't have ended up agreeing to the match. Honestly, I could see a huge benefit having my future daughter with the future Lycan Prince. It just would have been nice for us to make these decisions with our mates. Diana thought she was helping me out by agreeing to the treaty only if I had a daughter. She thought by saying this, the gods would help me get Scion back. Endymion told us it was our choice to make. But why did we act in haste? We could have made the decision later. I guess after hearing the story about Sean and Shane, we were both emotionally invested. All I could think about was getting Scion back, and if I had a daughter, that would mean that I did. Hypotheticals are easy to agree to. I stepped back from Scion and looked up at him. His jawline was rigid, and his lips were pursed together. His brows were knitted as he glared at Endymion. "I'm sorry," I whispered out as his eyes flashed down to me. I noticed how his brows wrinkled as he looked at me curiously. "Well, you two have a lot to discuss. Until next time, adieu." Endymion winked at me and with a smile vanished. Wow, he was cheeky. "Come on, Stilts, I'll take you back," Shiva said, and I noticed she motioned with her eyes to Riapus. "Good. The vibe here gives me the creeps. You can change the look anytime, you know? The depression is over now, right? So let the realm shift with your mood." Stilts grumbled as he stared at Riapus. For such a little guy, he had a lot of spunk. He didn't mind mouthing off to the gods. Yep, I liked him. JM Snap. All rights reserved. If the place looks too enticing, souls will not want to leave. The idea is for them to move on. Riapus snapped at him in agitation as Stilts snorted. "Well, you don't have to worry about that. I have taken It's that looked better than this place." "Okay, let's go," Shiva said hastily as a blue light quickly engulfed them. She obviously wasn't in the mood for a bickering fest. I glanced back at Scion to see his eyes burning a hole into me. The words Endymion spoke obviously plagued his mind. I gave him a nervous smile and wetted my bottom lip. "I'm sorry, Scion. I entered into an agreement without talking to you. I didn't know what would happen. I was told you were lost, and I couldn't get you back." I wasn't expecting the low, threatening growl to escape his lips. His eyes darkened, and he narrowed his eyes at me. He had never looked at me like this before. There was rage storming in his eyes as his lips curled up slightly. "The deal you made? Does it have to do with you?" he asked, and I tried to swallow the lump in my throat that wouldn't go away. "Both of us," I whispered, and watched as he clenched his jaw. He squeezed his fingers together so tight his knuckles began to turn white. "Is it a binding agreement?" he growled. It hurt to see him looking at me like this. I deserved it, but my insides felt shaken. I slowly nodded my head and listened to a low hum of a growl escape from his throat. "I'm sorry," I choked out. I listened as he let out an angry sigh and rubbed his forehead. "Is it a temporary agreement?" He stared at me until I looked down at the ground, giving him the answer he didn't want. I listened as he inhaled through his teeth, and I looked back up at him. "I know you made the decision with the knowledge that you were given. I'm sure it was the gods' fault. But—" His breathing was erratic as he inhaled a shuddering breath. "Clover." He snarled and then took a few steps away from me. He began to pace back and forth in front of me, looking more and more agitated. He shook his head and continued to growl. He stared at the ground with a terrifying intensity as he stomped on the ground. He stopped and raised his finger, looking at me, then shook his head, closing his eyes. "Sion, I won't give you up!" He slashed his hand through the air as he roared. "I don't care. I can't. I will fight them all. I'll keep you here where they can't get to you. Clover, I can't. I don't have the restraint." His eyes were menacing. His tone was fierce, but not necessarily addressed to me. I looked at him in confusion, and my lips parted as I tried to find my voice. "Sion, you don't understand? I understand you made a hasty decision. You have to understand that I won't live without you. I don't care if you agreed to belong to the Diamond Pack. They will never be able to claim you. I'll kill anyone who tries. It doesn't matter who the person is. I'll drag their soul from their body and obliterate it. You are mine." His nostrils flared as he set his jaw. His hands trembled angrily, but his eyes were filled with sorrow. He instantly thought the agreement with the Lycan princess was about me. How was he going to react when I tell him it was our daughter I promised? My insides were balled in a knot as I braced myself for his reaction. "Scion, I never agreed to belong to the Diamond Pack. He didn't let me finish. "You said it is about us." I watched as his eyes studied me and I nodded my head. "Yes, I made an agreement involving us, but it isn't about me." He let out a loud breath and placed his hands on his knees. He muttered something under his breath that I couldn't quite make out. Then he looked back up at me. The look that washed over his face was replaced with concern and relief. He closed the gap between us with calm and slow movements. His hands landed on my shoulders, and he kissed my forehead. "Thank the gods," he muttered in my hair, wrapping his arms around me. "But as long as I am keeping you, it's fine. I was afraid." I heard his shuddering breath as he gripped me tighter. "I was so afraid the gods plotted to take you away from me. I love you so much. As long as I have you, it doesn't matter. Whatever deal you made." "Scion!" I pushed away from him, seeing his shocked face. I had to stop him. Once he knew what I agreed to, he was going to be livid. I wasn't thinking rationally, and I should have waited to discuss this with him. He had every right to be furious, and he needed to know. I pressed my lips together and held my gaze with his. "I promised that if we have a daughter, she will be betrothed to the future lichen prince." I felt my body tighten as I waited. Nothing. I looked up at his face as he stepped towards me. His hand softly brushed over my cheek. He trailed his hand to my jawline and pressed his fingers under my chin softly. He tilted my head up until our eyes met. His eyes searched mine, and then a small smile formed over his lips. "My love, my heart, my everything, are you okay with this deal? Because if you aren't, I will do everything in my power to change it." This was something I already thought might happen. I hate taking away our daughter's right to choose, but if she ended up as the future lichen princess, I can't think of a safer place for her to be. JM snap. All rights reserved. I shouldn't have made such a decision without you. "Clover, look at me," he demanded as he forced me to look at his warm hazel eyes that were full of love. "This is a strong decision. It was the right one. It was the future that I am sure she was already destined for, if we ever have a daughter. Who knows what the future holds? It's okay, Clover. Honestly, our daughter would deserve a strong mate. As long as she is happy and treated well, that is all that matters." He lowered his lips to mine, capturing them tenderly. "I'm sorry I worried you." "Oh yeah, that reminded me. How could you send me away like that?" I cleared my throat and watched his eyes light up. I knew that I couldn't fight him off. I could feel him taking over my body. I was afraid he would hurt you using my body. I couldn't let you be put in that situation. I had to get you somewhere safe while you were trying to take control of yourself. You couldn't fight me and the glass in your eye. His lips curled up with a small shrug. "I knew you'd come for me once you were fully in control. I saved you so that you could later come and save me. Luckily, you already saved me. You kept me protected so that he couldn't take over me completely. I'm sorry, though. I didn't realize the gods would end up using this situation to their advantage. Riapus came to your defense. He thought you were lost too. He was ready to defy the other gods to get you back. I think he cares more than he likes to lead on." I smiled at him, and he chuckled. "He just wants me to procreate and have lots of babies. He doesn't want to lose me without at least giving him one child. I'm sure had I done that, he wouldn't have cared at all." "Oh yeah, I forgot. I guess I had something else to talk to Sion about." "No, he still would have cared," I said and smiled up at Sion. I found out something." I gazed into his curious eyes, trying to think of the best way to tell him. I guess like pulling off a bandage, don't beat around the bush and comes right out with it. "Sion, we are having a son. I am pregnant." I watched as he stood there waiting as if I was going to say something more. Then slowly the realization washed over his face. His eyes strayed from mine to move to my stomach, then back up to me. "You are pregnant?" he whispered, and I nodded my head. "Endymion said that I am pregnant with a son." I watched as he slid down to the ground on his knees. He reached out, pulling my body to his face where he kissed my stomach sweetly. "Our family," he whispered, placing his ear over my abdomen. "My little Alpha, we are going to have a home ready for you. We are going to reclaim our home. Oh." I watched as his eye flickered up to me and could see the hesitation. "Clover, don't say anything stupid, Sion." I smiled as he rose from his feet. "I'm barely pregnant. I am capable of fighting, and we can't save the chance pack without me." I watched as his lips tilted down as his brows folded together. Then he shocked me, picking me up in his arms and twirling me in a circle. "We are having a baby. I have my Luna, I have my baby, and now we just need our pack." I smiled as he flashed me a white, toothy grin. He softly placed me on my feet and his lips came to capture mine. "I bet you thought I was going to say you are pregnant, so you can't fight now? He chuckled against my lips. I know better, my queen. However, I am going to be so protective over you. You might as well get used to it. There is nothing you can do about that. Well, after almost losing you as many times as I have, I am also going to be really protective over you. There is nothing you can do about that, I said in a mocking tone as he chuckled. Oh, well, I get really vulnerable when we are in bed, so make sure you are extra protective there. He wrapped his arms around me as I smiled into his chest. It's almost over, he whispered, and I nodded my head. A normal life will seem boring after this, I teased, feeling his rumbling vibrations under my chest. I'm afraid our life will never be normal, he said, and I could hear the sadness in his voice. I glanced up at him to see his eyes looking out into the distance. His lips formed a thin line as his shoulders rose and fell. It won't always be life or death, but it won't be a normal life. Sion? I watched as he looked at me with a sad smile. I knew he was thinking about his role as Anubis. He was given a knowledge that I wasn't. As time passed, he was learning more and more about his role. I gave him a reassuring smile and interlaced my fingers with his. It's okay, Sion. He nodded his head and hummed in agreement. One step at a time. Let's head back. I squeezed his hand lightly. I wanted to ask him more, but that would be a topic for another time. Right now, it was time to focus on getting the chance pack back. It was time for me to introduce the real me to Dr. Brianna Snide. Note: join JM Snap Snapper Society on FAT3B0K for when to expect the next update. As Sion held me close, he started to transport us away from the spirit realm. I felt the air around us shift, and Sion's fingers gripped into me protectively. As the world began to come into focus, all I could see were bodies. It was as if an army had been summoned and was waiting here for us. An army of voidless. I felt Sion's body relax as he stared out at them. I looked up at him to see his eyes scanning over the area. Your souls should have been allowed to move on a long time ago, he said as the voidless hissed at him. They held their talons up defensively and seemed to hesitate on what to do. Sion turned me around in his arms as we walked away from the voidless. I was confused. Were we just going to leave them there? I glanced up to see Sion's eyes glowing amber. His eyes were focused ahead as his fingers casually caressed my side. Suddenly, I heard the sound of bodies hitting the ground behind me. I glanced back to see all of the voidless had collapsed. Their bodies were melting into the earth and vanishing from existence. Was this Sion's power? I snapped my head up to look back at him. He didn't even flinch or work up a sweat. Nothing but the color of his eyes had changed. Just how powerful had Sion become? The voidless are not what you think they are, he casually began to say as we walked. They were created from body parts, earth and blood, beings created by witch doctors. The bodies became the hosts to spirits and souls. The spirits and souls became the fuel needed to animate the creatures. They are undead creatures, and as such are under my jurisdiction. I listened to him quietly as we walked through a dirt-covered path. I am glad to see you have finally embraced who you are. In front of us were Riapus, Shiva, and Stilts. Riapus stared at Sion with a tilted grin on his lips. He no longer had the hat covering his eyes that looked proud of Sion. Yeah, I understand it. Sion's hand rubbed over my side, and I glanced up at him. His eyes were back to his hazel color, and he seemed relaxed. I understand the duty I am tasked with, though I am still trying to figure out what exactly this makes me. It is complicated, Sion. Your role in this life and in death are intertwined. You were dead, so you are different. You have been granted skills that you usually would have gotten when your life was over. You are more than just helping the spirits move on. You also are here to enforce the rule of the living. Just like how the voidless violate those rules. I understand my role, Reap. It is like I already know. Sion seemed to interrupt him hastily, like he didn't want him to continue to elaborate. I get that I am a lupine now, and that I can take the form of Anubis. However, I watched as Sion pursed his lips together as his brows knitted together. There is more, isn't there? I feel it. I glanced back up at Riapus to see him shift uncomfortably. You can't not tell him, Shiva hissed in a quiet voice. I think he already knows. Stilts snickered, folding his arms over his chest. Don't you? What will this mean for Clover? Sion said the words through clenched teeth. What do you mean? Riapus ran his hands through his hair and sighed heavily. You are stronger than what she is. She has abilities that you do not. No, it is because of the bond between you two that you are able to sense yourself. I don't want that bond to change, the connection between us. Sion glanced down at me. I understand why it happened now. I mean, it was really confusing at first. I didn't know, I didn't understand it. It made me feel crazy, but now I get it. I know the truth of it. I felt Sion's body tense next to mine. I just want to know exactly what this will mean going forward. We are expecting a child. What will all of this mean? I watched as Riapus sighed and pinched the bridge of his nose. Some things you are not meant to know now. However, I don't want to keep you in the dark. I watched as he glanced over at Shiva, who slowly nodded her head, giving him her permission to continue. Clover will become like you when her mortal life is over. Your bond will not change. In fact, it will grow stronger. However, her powers will be slightly different. She will have the gifts of life more than death. You can each tap into each other's powers thanks to her being a Shea. I watched as Riapus' eyes focused on me. After your mortal lives are over, the rules will change. You will be bound by the rules that Shiva and I are playing with now. You won't be able to interfere freely. That includes helping your direct descendants in the future. Wait, if we are bound by the same rules as you two? I furrowed my brows and slowly looked up at Sion. You will both be gods, not high-ranking Tier 1 gods, but gods nonetheless. You will become death gods directly under me. My lips parted as I took in a slow breath. I had wrapped my head around the idea of us being immortal, but this was something entirely different. A blessing and a curse. I would get to see my children and children's children, all of my descendants, but I wouldn't be able to intervene and help them. There are rules and responsibilities to being a death god. Riapus stared down at me with a serious look in his eyes. Our laws, they must be upheld. The balance must be kept, and the pact with life must be upheld. As death gods, you must uphold both sides of the pact. I felt like I was breathing in water as I looked up at Sion with my mouth parted. What does that entail? I was curious as to what that would mean. You will understand when that time comes. It isn't now, and there's always workarounds like Sion. Riapus winked at me with a crooked grin. You'll have an eternity to be with your mate, Shiva said with a smile. There is no separation for the two of you. You'll always have each other. I watched as she leaned into Riapus's side. Even when you fight, you still have time to make up, she said, winking at Riapus, who let out a rumbling chuckle. I glanced down at my stomach and my hand came to rest over it. What about my children? Will they be? They will not be deities. That is Sion's role and yours because your lives are intertwined. Your children will be lupines that have Shea abilities, powerful, rare, and desired by many. Your children will be safest in the diamond pack. Shiva said, and I felt Sion's arm move around me. He turned me to face him as he stared into my eyes. He searched my eyes quietly with a discerning look on his face. I looked back at him confidently and smiled at him. I didn't want him to think that this news affected me negatively. Honestly, it was more a blessing than anything. I will get to love Sion for eternity. A small smile finally reached his lips, and he leaned his head down to rest on mine. His lips began to smirk as his eyes lit up. I'm going to sleep with a goddess. I giggled as I ran my hands slowly down his chest. Well, you already have the body of a god. At least soon, you'll have the stamina of one. I teased through our mental link as a low growl escaped his lips. Are you saying I ran out of stamina last time? I wasn't even close to being done. If it wasn't for the ceremony, I would have brought you to a level of ecstasy you would have needed days to recover from. Oh, my sweet naive alpha, you would be the one who would need days to recover. My lips twitched upwards as his chest reverberated in a low growl. We will put that to the test. Which one of us will fall asleep from exhaustion first? His mental voice cut into my mind with a low, husky promise. I look forward to it. So what about Meryl? That bitch is nowhere, and there isn't even a trace of her. Stilt's voice cut the mood. Sion and I turned our heads to look at the agitated little man. She is covering her aura, or else you two would be able to sense her, he said, looking at Riapus and Shiva. We can't destroy what we can't find, it would be a waste of resources. She will show herself soon enough. She can't and won't hide forever. Riapus made eye contact with Scion and me. I wish I could tell you everything I know, but, he sighed as he glanced at Shiva. But I can't. Instead, I will tell you things are deeper than you think. Be aware and be cautious. Be prepared for what is to come. I glanced up at Scion and watched as his eyes narrowed into a focused stare at Riapus. You are worried about something, something big. Riapus' eyes shifted to Scion and he nodded his head slowly. I guess just because you know it doesn't mean we have to. It could change the events if we know, which is why knowledge is power. We will manage. Scion wrapped his arm around my waist. I know you will? Riapus said with a genuine smile. I could feel things had shifted with Riapus. He had a look that showed he cared about us. Stilts. Take care of her, Shiva said with an icy tone. The little man grumbled and tapped his cane in the dirt. What am I, a guardian? I am not a bear. Stilts grumbled as Shiva's lips twitched. Well, if you would prefer to come back with me, I'll watch over her, Stilts shouted hastily. I'm better than a guardian. I don't have an unbearable temper that I need to control. He mumbled to himself. I have a better sense of humor, too. He continued to mutter to himself. Shiva let out a light chuckle. I glanced at the woman, who looked at me with a gentle smile. You will do just fine now. Trust in yourself and trust your mate. She stepped back as Riapus's hand went around her. We will be watching, Riapus said with a wink as the two of them disappeared in a blue flash. I'll meet you two back at the Nova Pack. Stilts snorted and then vanished as well. Scion and I walked quietly together back to the Nova Pack. Right before we reached the barrier, he stopped and wrapped me in his arms. I love you, he said, kissing my forehead and then sliding to his knees to kiss my stomach. And I love you, my son. He glanced up at me with a strange expression on his face. Clover, do you regret this? I looked down at him in surprise. I know you wanted a normal life, and I just want a life with you. It will be our normal. I love you and the life we are building together. I smiled as I ran my fingers through his hair. I love you and the child you put inside of me. In a quick motion, he stood up and wrapped me in his arms. He covered my lips in an urgent, heated kiss. My heart was beating wildly against my chest as the sweet tingles erupted over my body. Thank you, Clover, for staying by my side through all of this. You are the only one for me, Sion. Now we will have forever together. I can love you like I want to. I listened as Sion chuckled and he leaned his head on my forehead. This is why you are my perfect mate. You are the best decision I ever made. I am only able to embrace who I am because I know that I have you by my side. You are my strength, Clover. His lips covered mine again and my head began to spin. I never wanted this kiss to end. I never wanted this feeling to stop. I never wanted anything to go wrong. This moment was perfect. I knew that we were about to head into something fierce. We had another tough battle in front of us, and all we could do was hope everything was going to be all right. One more big battle, and we could hopefully have peace. I just hope we don't lose anyone close to us. Note, on Fath3B, join the group JM Snap, Snappers Society to find out when the next update is. Sion and I finished explaining everything we had found out, including the demon changelings. The only thing we didn't mention yet was that we were expecting. There were warriors from the Diamond Pack here, including their beta Sam. He was very knowledgeable, and it was clear he had seen his fair share of battles. Sam had a fresh perspective on the demon Omegas. He said that just because they were demons didn't immediately make them bad. There are demons and half-demons in the Diamond Pack. One of them granted elemental powers to the Alpha King. I guess in my mind, since they planted the demons there, this would automatically mean they were against us. However, Sam didn't agree. He felt that since they grew up with the pack, they could become loyal to them, especially if they weren't treated poorly. Sion surprisingly agreed. He said that everyone would be judged based on their own actions and being in control of themselves, since obviously we can't blame anyone for being controlled by the Nembrant glass. Speaking of the Nembrant glass, Sam told us that they would be delivering nullifying scales to all the packs soon. These scales would prevent the Nembrant glass from working. He also said that the Fairy Queen was working on a way to detect anyone who was under the effect of Nembrant glass. This would also be something that the packs would get. A solution was coming, But we still had to save the chance pack, and this was my show. No one else here had the ability to purify the Nembrant glass. I have done it with stilts and myself. I would now need to do it for the masses. It was a bit intimidating. I needed to be able to perform a task that I had never tried for the masses. There wasn't time for error, since lives could be lost. The pack would be there to defend me. They would try their best not to injure the controlled wolves, but they had to protect themselves first. If I messed up, many would be injured and killed. Sion and Sam were discussing the layout around the chance pack. They had a map drawn out, and Sion was pointing at the best areas to enter. I was trying to pay attention, but my mind would keep drifting back to what I needed to do. I don't know anything about this man. I heard an angry voice and turned my head to see Gia's father scowling at her. His jaw was clenched, and a small frown rested on his lips, while Gia's brows were creased together, and she looked ready to fight. "I need you to trust me," Gia said, and her father let out an airy laugh. "I trust you. It is him I don't trust. What do you mean he could be your mate? I have never heard of this kismet thing before. It is probably something he uses." "It isn't, and even if he is not my mate, this is my choice." My eyes darted from Gia back to her father, Adam. I could see the veins protruding from his arms as he stood there like a mountainous figure. "Gia, I think you are misunderstanding me. I am not telling you what to do. I understand that you are an adult and can make your own decisions. I'm just saying it is my job to protect and keep you safe. That is my job." My eyes widened as Connor stepped next to Gia, putting his arm around her. He met Adam's gaze confidently, and I swear the air felt heavier. Sion and Sam quit talking as they tuned in to the growing tension. "Dad, I want to introduce you to Connor, the beta of the chance pack." That Gia's voice was level and calm. In fact, she looked relaxed and leaned more into Connor's side. I watched as Adam's lips curled up as he scoffed. His eyes were focused on Connor, who held a confident gaze with him. "It will always be my job. My home will always be her home. Adam?" I watched as Sam stepped next to Gia's father and then looked over at Connor. I was glad he was there to de-escalate the situation, because it was looking rather tense. "Do you want to rough him up a bit and teach him who is in charge?" My lips parted as I stared at the two men. They didn't look like they were joking. "Uncle Sam?" Gia clicked her tongue and moved herself more in front of Connor. "It is okay," Connor said, pulling her back to his side. "I am a lichen, after all, and they are just werewolves." "Naive pup. We are werewolf officers to the Alpha King. You don't understand what that means, do you?" I watched as Sam's lips twitched into a smile. "It doesn't matter what it means, to be honest. There is only one thing that matters, and that is the woman next to me. I would like to know what your issue is with me," Connor said with a low growl in his throat. This was when Sion left my side and moved next to Connor. "I can vouch for him. He is a good guy," Sion started to say, but Adam cut him off. "Doesn't matter. You could tell me he spends every day feeding the hungry and building shelters for the homeless. It wouldn't matter." Adam said with a slight shrug. "You decided you won't like me no matter what." Connor growled, and Adam let out a low chuckle. "I decided I wouldn't like you from the moment she was born. You had no chance. No man will ever be good enough for my baby." Just when I thought the tension couldn't get any thicker, Adam finally smiled and looked over at Sam. "Just like I wasn't good enough for your sister, I'll never be good enough for her, but all I can do is try my hardest every day." He looked back at Connor. "You will always fall short. But will you try your hardest every day to always fall short of being good enough?" "Now that we agree on," Connor said as his lips tilted into a smile. "I'll never be good enough for her, but I will do my best because she is already perfect for me." "Good man," Adam said, and the two clasped arms. Okay, what was this? Just some weird show of male testosterone? "Daddy." I watched as Gia's eyes watered up and she had a bright smile on her face. She stepped forward and her father embraced her in his arms. "Selfishly, I wanted you to stay with your mom and me. I wanted to always keep you close. I don't want to let you go even though I know you are ready. I am a bad dad for wanting to hold you back, huh?" Adam said in a hoarse, raspy voice that showed how emotional this was. "No, you are the best daddy." I watched as a tear trickled down her face as a small smile rested on her lips. "I won't be far away. I promise to visit all the time." I watched the two of them and could see the family love they have for each other. I was happy to be with my mate. It wasn't bittersweet for me at all. I wonder if it would have been like this for me had my parents been alive. This was part of life for everyone, but for those with mates it was more drastic. Usually it all happened so fast. There weren't months to get used to the idea. You find your mate and instantly you belong to each other. No need to get emotional now. Sam chuckled and smiled at the two of them. You can share your parting words later when it is time. Though, I don't want to be around when Susan releases her waterworks. He chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. I watched as Adam squeezed his daughter tight and then kissed the top of her head before pulling away. Adam and Connor were looking at each other now. Connor placed his arm around Gia, bringing her back to his side. So, is this pretty much official? Sion asked. They didn't mark each other, but their words made it sound like this was a done deal. It was very interesting to me how fast this was going. If it wasn't a type of mate bond, it was an insane type of chemistry between them. Connor looked down at Gia, who looked up at him a bit uncertain. It is for me? Connor said in a quiet whisper. I watched as Gia shyly nodded her head, which was uncharacteristic of her. However, she did have quite the audience, all waiting for her response. I want to be with you too, Connor. Given the timing, let's make it official after we save the chance pack. Connor pulled Gia in a full embrace, and she buried her head in his chest. He looked at Adam and gave him a short nod. I will be good to her. You don't need to worry. I promise I'll be a good mate to her. Okay, so what is the plan here? Odell finally snorted, and the mood began to shift to what the important topic was. Yes, Connor, did you do as I asked? Sion said, and I looked up at him in confusion. What had he asked? He must have sent a mental link because I was at his side the whole time. Yes, and it is done. They will meet us by the old oak. Perfect. This will be a good way to weed anything else out, Sam said, and I felt like I was really missing something. What did I miss? I said, and Sion and Sam looked at me with wide eyes. Weren't you paying attention? Sion asked, and he raised his brows. Oh, shoot. They did say it, and my mind must have drifted. I was so busy thinking about what I needed to do that I missed something important. You nodded your head in agreement, Sam said, and I chewed on my inner lip as I tried to rack my brain. Sion's lips twitched upwards as he walked up to me. It is okay. I am sure there is a lot going through your mind, he said as his hands came to rest on my sides. We sent Joey back to the Sulfur pack. We told him we would be meeting by the chance pack near the old oak tree. You are telling another pack the plans? Nadine asked as she stepped into the building. We are setting the stage. If there are others under Nembrant control or are working with Dr. Snide, this will let us know. We are setting up the trap first, Sion said as he kept his eyes on mine. We have the numbers on our side. We know that Taylor and Hazel were working with Dr. Snide. There could be more. We need to know if there are others. I felt my heart begin to beat a bit more. What if Jude was involved? What if Denny was involved? My mouth felt suddenly dry. They weren't under the effects of the glass, so if they were involved, they were doing it on their own. I guess no matter how much I tried to act like I was fine on my own, I still have attachments. Denny, Joey, and Jude were the closest people I had to family for so long. The idea that one of them could be behind all of this was nauseating. If they were, we would end up fighting against each other. The painful truth would be that meant I was never someone they cared about, which should anger me. I should be ready to fight them if that is the case. Instead, I felt sad. Sion's eyes were still on me as I looked around the room. I finally noticed that someone was missing. Where is Kai? Kai went with Joey and Stacy back to the Sulfur pack. He is strong, and his wolf is very experienced with Dr. Snide and her ways. He should be able to spot anything that is concerning. I watched as Sion's lips twitched up as he leaned forward, pressing his lips on my forehead. You really weren't paying attention, were you? Everything is going to be fine. He whispered against my skin. The thing was, I thought I had been. I didn't realize how badly I had zoned out of the conversation. Just to confirm, the wolves in the chance pack are being controlled, so we should avoid lethal force, Sam stated, and I turned my head to look at him. For everyone except for Brianna Snide, she isn't being controlled, same with Taylor and Hazel if they are there. I couldn't wait to choke slam that "call me Bree." I didn't have my wolf when I first met her. Not only did I have my wolf now, but I leveled up with my other powers. "Don't forget, Darcia," Doug said, and my eyes snapped up to Scion. Darcia was a fire demon who could have been the one responsible for killing his parents. If this was the case, she was very powerful. Darcia is powerful, so everyone should not engage against her. Leave her to me. Scion said, and our eyes met. I would be busy removing the mind-controlling effects from the pack to help fight. I know Scion was strong, but we knew nothing about this demon. I didn't want him leaving my side. Not that I wanted him there to protect me, but that I could protect him. I don't want to risk losing anyone else to this fire demon. I am strong enough to handle her, he said, giving me a reassuring smile. Our focus is keeping the enemy off of Clover while she works. We will do our best to subdue the enemy with no casualties, Dimitri said, and I looked over the room. Everyone had brave, determined faces. They all had faith in me. This plan all came down to me and being able to use my powers. If I mess up, it could be one of them who pays for it with their lives. I was inexperienced, but what choice did we have? I felt Scion's fingers caress my arm and I looked up at him. I gave him a brave smile. "It is time to mobilize the warriors," he said as his hazel eyes studied mine. "Yes, it is time to close this chapter so we can move on with our lives," I said and heard Logan make a whooping noise. "Yes, it's time to reclaim home." Logan cheered and punched his fist in his hand. Yes, it was finally time. I just hope I was ready. I don't know why, but I just had this horrible feeling like something was going to go wrong. That or either I would mess up or we would get taken by surprise. Maybe there was more at work there than we knew, and we were the ones heading into a trap. This is why, while the others looked pumped and ready to fight, I hid behind my smile. As we walked out of the tent to the cheering warriors, my mind wandered. I was flipping through all the possible scenarios I could think of, trying to figure out if we were missing anything. JM Snap, all rights reserved. I didn't know it then, but I was right. There was something important that would cost us greatly. Note, next update will be delayed. For more details, check out JM Snap, Snapper Society on Factory 3B. Okay.